Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Chud Watch. I hope you're all doing well. Hello. How are you? Boy. Sorry, I'm trying to kind of juggle some different stuff. So we're going to be having Doc Midnight on in just a little bit to talk about COVID and COVID conspiracies. I know that would normally be a Tinfoil Tuesday thing, but this is the day we had to do this, so we're going to talk a little bit about their perspective on this, you know? So it'll be good. We also have the rest of the stream is going to be sort of a super Chud watch covering all the chuds freaking out that Gina Carano has been let go from Disney. She didn't really work for, I mean, she was employed for certain roles, but her contract was up and they are choosing not to work with her anymore because of her anti-mask bullshit, along with some other chuddy takes, which we'll get into. But yeah, should be good. So yeah, hope you're all doing well. NB Gamer, thank you for thank you for your second month of a gift subscription that someone gave you. So that's nice. Will there be a MGTOW Valentine's Day tomorrow? That might be fun. Thank you, Baha, by the way, for making me look all nice. She did my hair, so I appreciate that. Thank you, Vork Void, for hosting. Appreciate it. Of course, the Senate voted to acquit Trump narrowly because Republicans are spineless pieces of shit, but that was pretty much expected. I still think they should have gone through with it as they did, because it's the right thing to do, but, you know, expected outcome. Chat is surrogating me a stream baby, says NP Gamer. Chappelmon says, are you effing serious? Yes, I'm serious. What's stopping Trump from taking over the party again? What do you mean again? He clearly still has control over it. I'm surprised even 7 Republicans voted to convict, to be entirely honest. That's more than in the entire history of the country of individual's party voting to convict. Sorry, I'm not good with words today. Maybe once I get more caffeine, I'll be good. Looks like Doc Midnight is already in the waiting room, so I'm gonna go say hi to Doc Midnight real quick, and then we will pop back and talk about COVID stuff, so... Be right back. This is gonna mute the music, too. I apologize.
Your girlfriend Baha.
Yeah.
And you know, she's a scientist too, so it's been very great being able to chat with someone else who
It is. She's like the smartest person I've ever known, and I understand about 35% of the science things she says, which I think is pretty good.
It's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I found actually because like being on Twitch, this is sort of like the first time I'm doing much public outreach.
Yeah.
I sort of have to even like think differently and like think very actively think differently about how how I would normally interpret a piece of news or a paper or something versus how to actually like condense it to a more understandable in a more understandable sort of way,
Yeah.
which is actually arguably harder sometimes.
Yep. I think they
Than
say
just
the
yeah.
best way to figure out if you really understand a topic is trying to teach it to
Uh-huh.
someone else at a layman level. So,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
all right. So,
Yeah.
so,
Oh, sorry.
oh no, it's fine. So, COVID, huh? I'm good at this.
Yeah.
Let me see.
And
What are the U.S. COVID deaths up to today? Hold on, let me look.
so we can look up the deaths, so then I'll tell you why it's much more than that.
Okay, we are at, according to the numbers, 481,000 deaths and 27.5 million cases in the United States.
Yeah, and we're likely even around 530, 540,000.
Interesting.
Um,
What's the cause of what do you think makes it underreported? Just
so this is one of those things that I like. I don't know if you heard about how I first started on Twitch as a
mm-mm.
whistleblower. So I started on Twitch as like a whistleblower
Okay.
early on in the pandemic, sort of exposing certain, political effects uh, on like workers' rights, healthcare workers' rights,
Okay.
and on quality of patient care that occurred as a result of like the politicization
Hmm.
of the virus. Amongst those things, I've whistleblown on, which actually later on, after I whistleblew it uh, a few months before, um, later on, that woman in Florida
Yeah.
ended up sort of, validating or, validating publicly at least things I whistleblew on.
Yeah, and she
Um,
didn't she end up getting her house raided by Florida's
the,
government?
the Yep, special agents came in, raided her house, took all her electronics, just for, her trying to do her due diligence and being honest. Um,
Gross.
to the public about being approached by the state government of Florida to decrease the numbers.
This is why I think it's
Um,
funny, and I've seen, and don't get me wrong, like I don't trust China's numbers necessarily either, but like I've
mhm.
seen, I don't know, whenever there's a report of how many deaths or new cases or whatever China has in the comments, I always
Mm.
see typically chuds being like, haha, like I'm gonna trust the CCP, and it's like, sure. But also, why are you trusting the numbers that we have currently? And I've seen them trust in the opposite
Exactly.
direction. They think like, oh, they're overinflated. No, why would they be overinflated? That would make the states look bad that are reporting these numbers. It's almost certainly underreported. It's so crazy to me.
Yeah, and before I go into this too, is it okay if I ask you to share your cam just so my stream knows who I'm talking to, if that's
Oh,
okay?
sure, of course. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no worries. But actually, like, so before that Florida thing happened, one of the things I started talking about on Twitch was my own
Oh,
experiences
I actually
in my
can't
own.
because
Oh,
I'm using my camera in OBS right now and I can only use it in one app at a time.
oh, no worries. I think what I'm gonna do
You could probably go to my
is just
stream and
all your.
share screen. That's what I'm doing on yours. I
Yeah,
have your stream pulled up on my stream.
yeah, I think I'm gonna do that too. Just have your stream pulled up.
Sure.
Uh, if the quality sucks, everyone, sorry. But yeah, well, that's actually like good. That goes into like what I was reporting when I initially came on to Twitch was in our own statistics department, people that I know in my state were approached also by representatives of our state government to the way they phrase it was to make the numbers more amenable to reopening.
That's disgusting. How could these people live with themselves, understanding that they're like getting people killed and trying to further that by like giving the illusion of safety when it doesn't exist? That is disgusting.
Yeah, and outside of my own whistleblowing, something that happened publicly that sort of like went under the radar amidst like everything else going on back in April, um, was the fact that the Trump administration made changes within the CDC to that changes that actually harmed their own ability to collect and interpret and release, case data for the coronavirus.
It's messed up. All these people are culpable in these deaths, and not only the deaths, but this is something that I've been talking about on stream too. A lot of the focus has been on deaths, at least to an extent, understandably so, because death is such a visceral thing. But also all the people whose quality of life is going to be potentially permanently decreased because of long-term side effects from COVID. I don't think that gets talked about as much as the deaths, and I think it's something worth noting.
I agree with you 300%. I mean, in the midst of the past 8 months, I still have patients, who can't taste or smell anything.
Yeah.
To a lesser extent, there's been evidence of reinfection as well. And like you said, and I'm sure Baha can validate this with her scientific background, is basically there are long-term effects seen everywhere in your body that expresses ACE2 receptors, which is what the coronavirus binds to. And actually, in the most recent past week or two, what we've been talking about in the medical field is preparing for the secondary pandemics. That's what we sort of call it, which is when we do, or if we do reach a point, in the hopefully near future, where we have a significant enough number of people vaccinated in our country to attain herd immunity, we now have to start thinking about the downstream pandemics, right? Increases in obesity, faltering mental health, probably likely tripling or quadrupling admissions to psych wards and hospitals, as well as psychiatric institutions. We now have to start addressing everything that occurred with being in a pandemic, and that's also another thing I don't think people talk about enough.
Yeah, this past year, I don't mind being isolated so much, because that's kind of how I am anyway, but a lot of people are having such a rough time. I can't even imagine someone who thrives on interacting with other people and being outside and all that. I can't even imagine how stressful this last year and some change has been on them.
Yeah, and then another thing that needs to be talked about, which I talked about with I don't know if you're familiar with the mental health advocate streamer Frank the Pegasus.
Okay, not familiar.
Is the fact that during this time also a lot of people that are in abusive scenarios have been trapped with their abusers.
Yeah.
And that's a significant population that in terms of discussing funding and resources, for coverage of people during and after the pandemic, that's a population that really needs to be addressed as well.
Yeah, that's not even a consideration that I'd really thought of, but there's so many little things like that that you just wouldn't take into account that matter. It's so crazy.
It's unfortunately very multifaceted. Everything that does need to be taken into account,
Yeah.
Especially, and because you cover conspiracies, right?
Yeah.
Especially this sort of changing scene of conspiracies, you'd think when we thought, honestly, naively, I thought, within the past few months, the amount of conspiracy theories or the amount of people adhering themselves to COVID conspiracies would decrease. But unfortunately, they just chose different things to follow.
The longer this has gone on, I've seen more and more COVID conspiracy theories, and I don't know what the actual for those who are listening to Doc Midnight's stream and don't necessarily know what I do. I do conspiracy theory debunks a lot. Once a week I do Tinfoil Tuesday, so I'm very into this world of conspiracy stuff. I'm surrounded by it often. I look into it in my off time. The number of COVID conspiracy theories has gone up as the year has gone on. It started smaller, but I think the longer people have been inside and have been sort of nothing to do but going online and finding
festering.
Yeah, and finding these corners of the internet where this stuff just rots and it stinks and the smell is getting worse for everyone, and now it's all a problem for all of us, because there are people who are straight up you know, going into stores or going into public and screaming at people, not even just about them not wearing a mask, but like they're yelling at people for wearing masks, screaming in their faces like, you sheep, what are you doing? Just basic public health measures that these people have spun insane conspiracy theories about, or heard someone online say, and they take it as gospel, probably because it's what they want to hear. They're sick of being inside. They're sick of wearing a mask, even though I don't think wearing a mask is that, you know, annoying. Some people seem to be very against it for some reason, and all of a sudden they think it just does nothing, despite the fact that it's been a piece of PPE for doctors for so long, for all of our lifetimes. It's just, I don't understand.
The last time, I think a week or two ago, where I actually looked into the history of mask wearing, apparently mask wearing has existed since about the 15th, 14th century.
I know plague doctors did it, but it was one of those situations where they were right for the wrong reasons. I know they wore those those long beak plague masks, and they would put herbs in the beak of the mask, and they would think that the sweet smelling scents would protect them from disease.
No, exactly. And, you know, in terms of the conspiracy's effects on people, I think we sort of need, me and you, like, to do the due diligence using our platform, if we can right now, you know, to talk about the xenophobia that's being exhibited against Asian Americans in the form of actual, like, physical attacks now.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of videos where white conspiracy theorists will see someone in public who is Asian, and they will yell at them, scream at them, blame them for these things. I mean, I usually, how do I put this? Even like 5 years ago, obviously, like racism was a little more on the DL. Of course, it's always been here, but they knew to couch it in dog whistles as to not. But, like, as we've gone on from 2015, 2016, and today, it's just out in the open. It is so wild, and I can't even imagine just happening to be someone who's Asian American, and then all of a sudden, a bunch of ignorant people are coming up to you and saying all sorts of terrible things. People are so ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, the most recent story, I don't know if you heard of it, Hannah, was this, like, 95 or 93-year-old Asian gentleman in San Francisco that, like, you know, was hospitalized, I think, you know, I could be wrong, but was like physically attacked heavily and was very injured.
It's so, which is so weird because these are probably the kind of person who is going to intentionally harm someone for something like that. Also strike me as probably the same kind of person who would on the same breath say like, oh, it's a Democratic hoax or something else, which is completely contradictory. It's so... And I know I keep saying it's just so strange, but it is. The situation is so weird and so unprecedented. The number of conspiracy theories that have risen in the last year, and they were already prevalent, like stuff like QAnon, which ends up tying into basically every conspiracy theory, up to and including all the mask stuff. It's just exploded. And again, it's probably in part because people are all stuck at home, and they're spending a lot of time online, and we all know how sort of echo chambers form, and if you start to set down one path, algorithms will pull you further and further into extremism in whatever direction you were already heading. It's just, it's dangerous, and I don't know what to do. On top of that, recently there was a shipment of, I don't know if it was the Pfizer or the Moderna vaccine, but it was like 500 doses or something. I don't remember the exact number. And it was destroyed by someone who worked for the hospital or something, and it turned out they were a conspiracy theorist who thought that the vaccines...
a pharmacist.
Pharmacist,
the Pfizer, destroyed the Pfizer doses because, like, part of the things that he believed when they interviewed him when he was in prison was that, like, correct me, someone in both of our chats, correct me if I'm remembering this wrong, but, like, something like, the sky is there to protect the people... The sky was put there to protect the people against, like, 5G or something, like some kind of ridiculous, like and you know, unfortunately, Hannah, let me tell you why, back to the xenophobia, why it's gonna decrease, because, you know, part of why I'm here in Titch is to provide people like an insider's look into the scientific and medical community. There's been a conspiracy theory that has divided, unfortunately, the scientific community. Um, that recent information started coming out from an editorial like research board in China about the BSL-4, like biosafety level 4 labs in Wuhan.
Okay.
Being like geographically close to the populations of like animals that, bats and stuff and things like that.
I would imagine that would have more to do with population density in those areas being higher, and you're going to put labs in areas where you can have employees near cities and stuff. I would imagine it has to do with that, as opposed to whatever BS
you're
there.
Studying a zoonotic disease, right? You want to be close to the animals you're studying, right? But unfortunately, this has now divided the scientific community to start believing that, oh, maybe COVID was generated as a bioweapon in the lab, by the Chinese government. Which I have many criticisms about the Chinese government.
Sure.
But this would not be one of them.
No.
And this past week or two, this is what I've been dealing with.
I don't know. And again, I look at a lot of this conspiracy theory stuff from all sorts of different sources, all of them nonsense. And even after all this time, I have no idea how to convince these people they're wrong. I have no idea how to actually convince these people. They weren't convinced initially by evidence. So how do you unconvince someone who isn't swayed by conventional rhetoric or evidence? Because their entire goal is not to gain knowledge that is the closest to reality. It's to prove the thing they already believe. And I don't know how to break that.
So, you know why, like, during this time they've been so bold enough to where it's so hard to break, is because they've had groups of scientists like those that created, I don't know if you're familiar with the Great Barrington Declaration. Are you?
Mm-mm.
So the Great Barrington Declaration was something that started where a group of scientists and doctors met in like Boston, Massachusetts, and wrote down this. And this was back, I think, I think off the top of my head, in like May, like April or May or something, where they wrote this like long manuscript advocating for removal of lockdowns. About a couple thousand doctors and scientists. Citing unfortunately many of the things that these people that we're trying, to get through are citing.
Yep.
And getting many thousands of signatures, to the point where something called the John Snow Memorandum, which is a group of doctors and thousands of doctors and scientists, had to be created to create an opposing force against that.
This is something that I think is emblematic of a larger problem, too, is that conspiracy theories, at least in conventional wisdom, used to be sort of the realm of the uneducated, the realm of people who sort of, I don't know, stereotypically, and I'm not saying this was necessarily reality, but we used to think of it as, guy living in a trailer, drunk in the middle of the night, looks up and sees what he thinks is a UFO and thinks he has an abduction experience. But nowadays, it seems more and more that even people in fields that require education, nurses, doctors, not most, but enough that it gives conspiracy theorists people to point to and say, see, we have doctors on our side, or in the case of like 9/11 conspiracy theories, they get a handful of engineers to agree with their bullshit, and they go, see, we have engineers. And that's a problem, because they're unable to see that even if they're able to find a handful of crazy people who agree with them, that the vast majority of experts in that field do not, right? All they need is, in their mind, one person to agree with them. It's that meme from that internet video have you seen where it's if a Google was a person, and she was like, do vaccines cause autism? And he's like, here's 1,000 articles that say they don't and one that says they do. And she grabs the one. It's that, but in real time, it's dangerous, and I don't know what we do about it when people don't trust authoritative sources that don't already agree with their preconceived notions of the truth, air quotes.
Well, because that's exactly the issue, Hannah, right? Like, the people like that, they don't care what kind of doctor or the background of the doctor they get to agree with them.
Mm-hmm.
They just have to be an MD doctor, and all of a sudden, hey, we're emboldened now, right? We're validated by the whole entire medical and scientific community,
Yeah.
right? I mean, a perfect example of this throughout the pandemic has been this group, if you've heard of it, called America's Frontline Doctors, where they've been a group of like 40 to 80, I think, doctors, none of which are frontline doctors. A lot of them even being, doctors that are disbarred. Coming together, being expressing anti-mask sentiment. They were one of the first medical groups in the U.S. to go on the steps of the White House and promote hydroxychloroquine. At that time when there was like no peer-reviewed data supporting it, and there still isn't.
What do you have any idea or any inkling or assumptions about what their motive might be? Like, is it genuinely just another level of they are ignorant themselves, even with their education, or is it for some selfish purpose, like they think they can enrich themselves somehow through doing this or gain some sort of clout from that right-wing conspiratorial community? Like, what leads people who should know better to that sort of conclusion?
So one of the things in addition that I whistle blew on are members of my own healthcare administration, as well as other doctors, supporting sentiments that were purported by that group of people. I was so confused early on with us having the same questions as you did, Hannah, right? To try to find out what the fuck, right? People took the Hippocratic Oath, people who are highly, highly published in their field, some of them, having like to the point where like they have honorary PhDs because they're so highly published and highly respected, supporting things like anti-lockdown, anti-vax sentiment. And you're right. I think we are living in a time where for those people, they are starting to prioritize political clout or their own political beliefs or validation of their own political beliefs against their own scientific and medical integrity. And it's a big fucking problem.
It's frustrating that the previous administration ended up politicizing an issue that should have absolutely nothing to do with politics. And that has to do with, where all this is coming from. I don't understand what's going to happen as things continue to become more and more partisan, and they're already this bad. What's the next thing, that's going to get politicized? Are seatbelts going to get politicized all of a sudden, and a bunch of people are going to decide to stop wearing them? It's dangerous. It's bad for society. I don't know. I feel like I'm crazy, and I'm on the steps of a courthouse screaming like, "What are you people doing?" And there's nothing, to be done as an individual.
It's really, really hilarious. And also, apologies if I let out a few curse words. I'll try not to.
Oh,
I don't know
you can
if
fucking
you allow
swear.
that.
I fucking swear all the time.
Okay. Awesome.
My stream is set for adults. It's fine.
But I think perhaps the most frustrating thing is if we look at the early 1900s, Spanish flu.
Yeah.
Especially, how our country treated it. We mandated the same exact precautions in our country. And, there were still anti-mask, anti-lockdown, anti-distancing sentiments, but a fraction of that compared to what exists now.
You know why? Because in a weird way, unintentionally, back in the day before the internet, these bad ideas, almost being mimetic diseases in and of themselves, were socially isolated from one another. The people who were anti-mask couldn't easily group up and coordinate attacks on beliefs of...
True, because they didn't have a platform.
Yeah. And nowadays,
Yeah.
anyone with any sort of belief can coordinate with others with similar beliefs and share ideas and bolster each other's confidence in said beliefs despite a lack of evidence, and it grows like a virus. I don't know what to do about this, because I'm not like a pro... How do I put this? I understand communities' rights on like private platforms to remove anything they don't like. Like, that is what it is. But, like, what do you do when there is dangerous anti-public health sentiment? How do you guide people away from that without outright being like, no, you can't say that? Because in many ways, and while I do think... I think removing that stuff is effective. I do. But also, it makes the people who believe that stuff more fervent. They end up being like, oh... they wouldn't let us speak the truth, and then they go to places like Gab or wherever, and they just spread it there. So I don't know what the permanent solution is. I think for mitigation right now, it makes sense to remove, like, Facebook pages that are, like, anti-mask bullshit or whatever. Totally. But, like...
Oh, go on, sorry.
No, go ahead.
So the logical answer, right? And keep in mind, this is the logical answer.
Okay.
Is getting scientific and medical professionals to publicly disavow and discredit, and with evidence discredit, right, those kinds of sentiments. The problem in execution is the more expertise scientific and medical professionals you have that address these things, the less impact that the things they say have on these kinds of communities. Right, there's like an inverse correlation where there shouldn't be.
Well, they assume, they have a deep-seated distrust of authority. So the more authoritative sources, if they all come out and say the same message, hey, you should wear masks, they go, oh, this conspiracy goes deep. Look at all of them in line with each other, telling us all to wear masks. It must be part of the plan, whatever they think the plan is. It's... That's what makes it difficult. We're not dealing with people who are swayed by conventional rhetoric. They're swayed by conspiratorial, emotional, visceral thinking. And I have no idea. I'm so the opposite of that. I try, at least. Of course, we all are swayed by emotion to a certain extent, but I'd like to think I'm analytical in the sense that I can look at evidence and try and make the appropriate call on what evidence is persuasive without biasing myself, at least any more than is, non-preventable, being a human being. I guess I don't.
So I have a positive good news story from my anecdotal experience. However, this only addresses like one small segment of the community we're discussing. So early on, where I live, there's like a large abundance of churches, mega churches, things like that. And throughout this time, especially was very prevalent in like April, May, as I'm sure one of the things that were the biggest super spreader locations and events, were churches still being held or church events still being held.
Yep.
And for a large part, the community where I live in, around like 95 to almost 100% of the churches and mega churches, did not want to lock down, did not want to stop events. A lot of them believed, them doing their due diligence to God, would save them from COVID, right? And, if they did die from COVID, it was their time, right? And, part of my only success I've been able to have in sort of addressing some of these things locally is targeting community members that they would believe in, or targeting strong forces of the community. It doesn't even have to be community leaders like pastors or things like that of their churches, that are amenable to listening to a doctor or to a scientist. Because those exist if you are able to speak to any of those people individually, even though, they're in a group setting, they're affected by groupthink. So I ended up, making a lot of appointments to speak with a lot of those people as much as I could individually. And at least in my local community, it ended up working and playing a big part in having those people sort of parrot, things that I told them after they were convinced. And, it led to a lot of churches finally like being shut down, and a lot of churches finally stopping events. So it can
Good
work,
for you.
I think.
I'm like,
Yeah,
just for the record, kudos on reaching out to them and hopefully having an effect and stuff.
Yeah, and I think, relating this to that larger community that we're discussing, right? I think that is the best strategy, is to try to address directly smaller elements or smaller individuals or smaller parts of the individuals in those communities, and trying to get through to them, and then having them spread your ideas throughout.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on that?
That makes sense. In my experience, a lot of conspiracy theorists, they don't trust people they don't directly know. So if you're a scientist, even if you're authoritative or you're a doctor or whatever, and you clearly know what you're talking about based on your credentials, they're not necessarily going to trust you because they don't know you. However, if you can get someone that they know in their life, a pastor, a community leader, whatever, to parrot the exact same things, they'll trust that because their trust doesn't come from authority. It comes from, oh, I know Mike, the pastor. I've known him for 30 years, okay.
Well, yeah, because I think something like doctors and scientists are ignorant about is that in those communities, Mike, the pastor, has more credibility than, head of infectious diseases MD, right?
It's depressing that that's the case, but yeah, factually, that's true for those people, unfortunately.
Yeah, and one thing more recently I've been addressing in the past month, in a less relatable way directly to that community, is vaccine hesitancy disproportionately existing in nursing staff, as opposed to lack of vaccine hesitancy in doctors and advanced practice providers.
Yeah, I've seen like more nurses come out and be that. I've also seen nurses that are like really into like essential oils and other.
Oh God, yeah.
So what's up with that? What's with the? You'd think even if they're not, I understand that nurses aren't as medically trained as doctors, but they're still around this stuff all the time. You'd think they'd understand, what works and what doesn't, at least in broad strokes.
So I think, and I just like to preface, I would not be able to be here physically and mentally without the nursing staff that I work with in the ICU. Mm-hmm. I would stand by them through anything. They're extremely essential to the care team in every aspect of medicine. Mm-hmm. So what I'm about to say has no sort of biases rooted in them, because I see them, as, I don't see a hierarchy. I see everyone as equals working on a care team in the hospital.
Sure.
But the fact of the matter is, logistically, in the amount of academic years required to be a nurse is less than the academic years required to be a doctor or an advanced practice provider. And with those years, come a really, really, really thorough and advanced level of education for, a lot of things that you need as a doctor, at the very least, in-depth education about, right? Like histology or anatomy and physiology or immunology, right? Mm-hmm. It's more of a matter of like, the two jobs are extremely different, so the education is catered around the information needed in order to successfully practice those jobs.
Is some of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't know anything about like the training of nurses, but like, is it more that when you're training as a nurse and learning in nursing school, it's more, here's how you administer a vaccination, and less, here's how a vaccination works and why it works? Is it that they're learning just more application skills of how to do things at a hospital as opposed to the like theory behind why these medicines work? Is there a mix of it? What's the like practical difference there? And if there is a difference, would it help to change up perhaps a little bit of like nurse training to make it a little bit more theory focused, or?
There is a mix of it, but
Okay.
you're perfectly right in saying that it sort of caters to more of an application based, like practical application based kind of education.
Okay.
Which goes back to what I was saying, is that like the type of education, the amount of education is catered to the job requirements and responsibilities,
Yeah.
right, of each job, which are different. Doctors and nurses have two entirely different jobs.
Yeah.
And because of that lack of theory, it becomes difficult then for a lot of people to discern and like read between the lines in misinformation that is presented in a very sort of subtle way, right? Like, like you see those like spy TV shows, right, where they like talk about trained people how to talk about their backstory, and like,
Yeah.
the best way to lie is to lie with some semblance of the truth, right? And because not all misinformation is presented, in bright red Facebook background letters with no sources cited, and right, a lot of it is presented with cited sources. It's just a lot of people outside the heavy sort of like scientific research or like medicine type of field. It's hard to discern, right, between like a peer reviewed or non-peer reviewed paper. It's hard to discern between like a study with a high amount of statistical power, right, versus not. And because of that, that is where, that is how you have a lot of nursing staff or a lot of other staff be sort of either resistant or hesitant about the vaccines. And when you address these types of things, you really have to address it from a standpoint of like you understand where they're coming from, right? And you like are treating all of their concerns as valid, even though you might, even though they're
Even if
not.
you're in your head, you're rolling your eyes.
Yeah. And from my own experience, from like having in early December, like only 20% of the nursing staff in my hospital willing to get the vaccine, to working with other members of the faculty, to providing presentations and to speaking individually, and to like create hotlines that people can call, from the other staff within our hospital, to like now in February, about 92% of them have now gotten vaccinated or expressed willingness to do so.
That's good.
Yeah, and this is the only population that actually have the closest to practical concerns as any population. I mean, a big concern in a lot of nursing staff, does come with fertility. It does come with people aligning themselves with conspiracy theories regarding the effects of vaccines on fertility. And I think a lot of that, goes into a misunderstanding, number one, and I'm sure Baha can speak on this too. A misunderstanding of what populations are conventionally included in clinical trials, as well as what populations, that have been in the clinical trials that have actually gotten pregnant throughout, the Pfizer Moderna trials, and have had, no negative ramifications of it.
Okay.
To understanding the concern, the main concern that they have of cross-reactivity with this protein called syncytin-1, which is, within the placenta.
Okay.
And, explaining it in a way, and this more so like speaks to a lack of as thorough of a, biomedical background. Speaking to in a way like, hey, well, if cross-reactivity exists with the vaccines, right, we would start seeing that level of cross-reactivity in COVID patients or recovered COVID patients already, because they would already have antibodies that would cross-react, right? So like, that's what I mean exactly. Like addressing at least in those kinds of communities, when you address all their concerns in a very practical manner, it becomes very easy, at least for that segment of the community, to convince people to, like understand, to have that level of understanding that they need to have to
Sure.
be able to make their own informed decisions.
Well, at least they're able to be swayed by evidence-based discussion. That's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because that, once again, Hannah, right? That's not even really the population we're concerned about right now.
I really wonder. I'm sure there have been stats, and maybe you know this. Do you know like what percentage of the population has said they won't get the vaccine in the United States? If not,
I think that percentage changes quite frequently. I think the last time a couple weeks ago I looked at it, it was still about a third.
Third. Is
Yep. Last 2 days, it's still a third then.
Jesus. People frustrate me.
So, you know what's worse, Hannah? If you look into that article, 17% of adults said they probably won't get it, and 15% of that 17% said they definitely won't get it. Probably won't get it. You can still sway those people, right?
Yeah.
You can. Oh my god.
I wonder, and this is interesting too. I haven't talked to like my dad in years. He's not a big fan of the whole trans thing. Anyway, he got the flu shot every single year growing up. I do wonder if, since he's fallen down sort of the Trump rabbit hole, if his opinion on vaccines has changed at all. But who knows? I just wonder how many people have
Chances are. Oh, go on. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, I just wonder how many people, for political reasons, have been swayed away from vaccines, and I imagine it's quite a few.
Yeah, I mean, chances are, if he's part of the Trump supporter community, I wouldn't say that. I would sort of bet money on the fact that he will not want to get the vaccine.
No.
Because they've been, the most vocal community against it.
Yeah, it's okay though. If he catches COVID, that's probably the one death I'll be okay with.
Sorry to hear that, Hannah.
Oh, it's okay. I make jokes about him all the time. It's fine.
Okay, cool. But lately this is a conspiracy, not a conspiracy per se to like the Merriam-Webster definition of conspiracy, but lately this is something that has actually pervaded both communities, both the pro-vax and the anti-vax community, that I'd like to discuss with you too, is like doctors and nurses coming out and speaking about the fact that if you're not experiencing side effects, it means the vaccine's not as effective for you.
Interesting.
That is a big, horrible take that does.
Why
qualified people should not be saying.
Why are they spreading that? Just, they must be misinformed in and of themselves? I wonder where they got that misconception.
They're misinformed in and of themselves. A lot more people have that misconception because if you only have like a basic level of understanding of immunology, right, then your mind would operate around the fact that like, okay, well, an immune response that is showing mild side effects is a good thing for in the context of a vaccine, working productively, because it means your body is generating an immune response to the vaccine.
My grandparents just got their second dose, and they, for like a couple days, they said they were not feeling so hot, but they're fine now. So yeah, that's certainly a thing.
The thing is, and this is the like nuance that a lot of people are not seeing, even qualified people, is that having those side effects, is it a good sign that your immune system is working? Yes. Is it a prerequisite to having efficacy from the vaccine? No. And all it takes, honestly, even if you don't have an understanding of immunology, is just to look at the paper. And just to look at, like, for example, the Pfizer paper, where about 30 to 50% of the trial participants had no sort of systemic level side effects after the second dose, but there was still a 95% plus efficacy.
Okay.
Right. So do you see what I mean? Like, even just looking at
Yeah.
the data. Yeah. But unfortunately, that's an idea that I've started to see all over Facebook and Twitter. And
I think part of that comes from the fact that, and I'm not the most intelligent person in the world. I'm not the most educated person in the world, but I occasionally peruse like scientific papers for stuff we do on here or whatever. Those can be difficult to get through if you don't have, especially if it's something that like cites statistical analysis or anything, and it has stuff that way over the head of people who are just like people who aren't used to doing that sort of thing. So I do wonder if part of the problem between like science communication and people's lack of scientific literacy has to do with the fact that they're unable to interpret some of this stuff, even if they are given like a primary source, like a paper or whatever.
I completely agree with you. And that's been one of my like big passions on using something like Twitch and YouTube. Is I've always wanted to, and maybe this is something I can reach out to you for help with. I've always wanted to create a YouTube video that teaches people how to interpret scientific papers, how to identify bad scientific papers from good ones, how to identify which are the top journals, how to, in a very basic level, how to interpret the statistics that are being reported. Because you're right. I think part of bridging the gap between like science and medicine and the general public is sort of having the scientific and medical community not be assholes and release things that can only be interpreted by scientists and doctors. And be like, maybe when you publish a paper in Nature or the Lancet or something, release like a TLDR paper, right? Release like maybe not an infographic, but at least release like a paper that has language that is more amenable, right?
Something more akin to, like a version of it that's condensed to something more akin to what you would read in Scientific American, as opposed to something like Nature that's easier for the public to read.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah, and even Scientific American, in terms of the articles they release, are not substantial either, because even then, to a lot of people, can be too complex, right? Okay. And then when you look at how, Time Magazine or New York Post alternatively then report on science, it's like really fucking horrible to the complete opposite direction.
Yeah. Every other week, miracle cancer cure found. Yeah.
Yeah, or honestly, and this is something I'm ashamed of saying, honestly, even on like the Reddit science subreddit, it's like that too, right? Where there's actual scientists in that subreddit, but then you like go to headlines of what's being posted, and it's like, oh, miracle cancer cure. Yeah. It's been studied in mice only, but it's completely analogous immediately to humans when you need to start giving it out, right? Things like that, right?
Yeah. Baha also mentions paywall blocking being an issue. Because,
true. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And says that eLife, which I assume is a journal, has everyone who gets a paper published write a plain English abstract, which sounds probably like a good idea.
Yeah, and Baha, I think you would agree with me that every paper should have that requirement. I know it's a lot more work, but, these are scientists spending hundreds of hours writing abstracts and grants and publications anyway. I think it's a very insignificant increased level of work that is required to do so. And I think outside of like having figures in the field like Dr. Fauci or other doctors and scientists, like being on media platforms and speaking about their interpretations or like the agreed upon conclusions of science and research is, to be able to, for people that don't align with those figures, right, to be able to have an unbiased sort of interpretation for them to look through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Someone in the chat says, now every paper must have a clickbait title.
Oh, God, no.
You won't believe how this pluripotency is determined in these stem cell samples.
Yeah, and it's a very good point that someone in your chat pointed out, right? Is most abstracts, I'll just read word for word.
Yeah.
Most abstracts are designed to be much simpler than the rest of the paper, but even still they can be hard to read. Yes, 100%. I mean, as like an undergrad or even, my early years in medical school, some papers were still really fucking hard to read. I remember in fourth year of undergrad, where for the past 3 years I've been taking science classes and reading scientific papers and working for a lab for a 10-page paper coming out of the Lancet or something. I still spent a whole entire week highlighting things, looking things up, because people who have a high level of understanding of these things write as if they write under the assumption that other people do too.
Yeah, I understand why I understand why, because a lot of the jargon and stuff is necessary to concisely get across complicated ideas, right? That's the entire purpose. If anyone could just go and do this, there wouldn't be a need for that. But I do think that communication aspect is something that should be considered in the publication. The research, I understand, needs to be complicated, and the full paper needs to be something that's intricate and repeatable and understandable for everyone in that particular field, whatever it happens to be. But yeah, I think having some sort of version that you could... I think having a standard where, you can have your complicated paper, but also, if you wanted to explain this to, a high school science student, how would you explain this? Yeah. Just briefly. It doesn't have to be, with all the nuance, but, I don't know. It would be helpful. Who knows, though?
Yeah, and I actually think, the most realistic way to implement this is, putting this as part of the process of peer review, actually.
Yeah. Making sure that it's they're checking out, can other people understand this easily?
Exactly. Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. That would make sense. Yeah,
because in a very ironic way, Hannah, an aspect of clinical research that is in the past 5 years or so being heavily studied
okay,
is disparity of healthcare literacy in different populations with not by SES, not by socioeconomic status, but by level of education, to the point where high levels of healthcare literacy are even seen with people with healthcare illiteracy, lack of healthcare literacy, are seen in populations of highly educated people. But then when they publish these papers, they don't think about why. And we're talking about why.
Yeah, it's a problem, but I don't know. Either way.
And do you think?
Sorry,
go on.
No, go ahead.
I feel do you think part of it's sort of a thing where both sides need to do something? Do you think a part of a step in the right direction is also including as part of high school or middle school or college science curriculum academic paper interpretation or academic writing?
I think it would be a good idea, some sort of scientific literacy or academic literacy. I don't know exactly what they would call it, but I think that would be a good idea, because I even went to a really good high school. It was well funded. The teachers gave a shit, which is more than a lot of students get in this country, unfortunately. But even in my science class, they didn't really explain how to do it. We had an assignment where it was all right, go write a thing in the format of a scientific paper, and at no point in the class did they ever explain what that was. We were just meant to go Google it or something.
Oh my God.
And I think I got a really bad grade on that, because even I didn't understand it. Even if you asked me to do that now, frankly, I wouldn't. I can get through a paper. I can understand that, okay, this is the abstract. This is, your data, this is your, how you conducted your experiment and all that stuff. But like, if someone asked me to do that, even for something simple, I wouldn't know how to do it. So I don't know.
Yeah, because it's not even just right to understanding, how to read or interpret an abstract or a conclusion or the materials and methods or the figures, right? It's about understanding as well, like in order to understand it, you have to understand even the most basic level of like different types of research studies. Like what does it mean when you're doing a longitudinal study? What does it mean when you're doing something that's double blind? What does a placebo mean, right? Things like that, even down to that level, is something that is not being taught commonly enough in schools, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Right, and one of the like most sort of amoral things, and not actively amoral, just like amoral because of how things are conducted. In terms of clinical research, as part of any clinical research, as I'm sure all of you out there who work in science know, is a concept called informed consent.
Yeah.
Right, is a concept called like informed consent, meaning like you've explained the whole entire study to the research participant to the point where they have a complete understanding of the study, and then they either, depending on the type of informed consent, verbally agree or electronically agree or physically agree and sign that they also concur that they understand every aspect of the study and they agree to do it.
I know that didn't you host a debate a while back that was related to this in regard to that immortal cell line that was taken from, oh my gosh, I'm
HeLa
forgetting.
cell, Henrietta Lacks HeLa cells, yes.
Yes.
Yep, I did.
Baha and I had a whole conversation about this a while back just because it's an interesting topic, and how we even had a discussion about like, how do you determine what is and is not informed consent, considering the gulf in knowledge between the doctor or the scientist and the patient is always going to exist, because obviously the scientist or doctor has an expertise. You need to be able to effectively communicate the ideas of what is going on to them in such a way that it can be considered informed. And obviously with like Henrietta, it wasn't even close, but like, it's such an interesting topic, scientific and medical ethics in regard to studies.
If you love that topic, Hannah and Baha, I would love to have you on my debate this upcoming Wednesday. Can I talk about it real quick? I'm really excited about it.
Go for it.
So what this upcoming Wednesdays is so one of the exercises in medical school, if you're like taking a class on like medical ethics, which you should, is like deliberating over different cases, like different medical cases, like case studies, and then interpreting whether, if the healthcare provider in question, whether they were justifiably so, put under legal action or not. And I sort of wanted to take this practice into the general public and see how, other people that do not, that are not in medical school do with this kind of exercise. So my Wednesday debate is actually going to be like, from the perspective of a doctor, I want everyone to debate on 2 case studies. And one of the case studies is an abortion-related one, and one of the other studies is a Supreme Court case called Bouvia versus the Supreme Court, where a quadriplegic woman who had cerebral palsy, I think chose to want physician-assisted suicide, but then her family, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, anyone in both of our communities, then her family, I think, like sued the hospital saying that...
Is this the Terry Schiavo case, or was this a similar...
This is similar, but it's not the same one, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You definitely have to talk to Baha about that if you are to come on. And I have no expertise in this, and I would never claim to, but Baja might be interested in coming on and talking about that stuff. I know she really enjoys that discussion, so...
Yeah, and part of my passion with my debate panel is like I have a background in academic debate, and that's why I started the panel, was to have like civil debate that's like fact checked and things like that. But yeah, that's next Wednesdays. So Baja, I would love to have you if you want.
By the way, chat, here's a link to, I already put it earlier, but here's a link to Doc Midnight's channel if you want to check out any of that stuff. Boop.
Oh, I really appreciate it, Hannah.
Oh, of course.
Thank you.
Well,
but yeah, medical ethics is something that definitely, I share the same passion as you, that it needs to be more heavily discussed, not only in the general public, but more in the political scene as well. Because the whole entire pandemic has been, in terms of how our government has addressed it, has been a complete violation of medical ethics and the Hippocratic Oath.
Yeah. It's, if I learned anything
down
in the last...
to like a human rights level type of violation.
If I learned anything in the last 5 years, it's that our governmental structure is a lot more flimsy and taped together with duct tape than I expected. I don't know.
This is something, because you discuss politics and understand politics like definitely more than me. I was wondering, like, how come everything that was a governmental decision that completely went against the understandings of science and medicine, like how are there no checks and balances in place to not allow that?
Well, the thing is it turns out a lot of the how do I put this? A lot of the stuff that was like a check and balance in terms of the executive branch, especially, turned out to be more norms as opposed to laws. I don't think the founding fathers really expected, and I'm not one of these people who, like, sucks off the founding fathers. They had some good ideas. They had a lot of bad ones. Having slaves was one of them, among many others. But I don't think they ever quite expected a person as awful as Donald Trump to actually get to the presidency. Their check on that was the Electoral College and other stuff. But he got through anyway, and also the Senate, because it was controlled by Republicans, and things are so partisan that they're never going to vote against their guy, didn't become a check. They all just worked together to forward Republican stuff, and Republicans don't really care about public health. They don't care about their constituents, like, at all. So, I don't know.
Well, because, like, there was, like, a huge, like, logical, like, mental disconnect to the point that it broke my brain, in that a lot of the communities that showed an extreme level of support for Trump are communities that have extreme disparities in access to medical care.
Yeah. It's frustrating. And someone even says in the chat, the Electoral College installed him. Yeah, that's the irony. A system that they put in place because they thought that the common rabble was too stupid to pick the president, unintentionally made, like, the dumbest president ever the president. It's very interesting. The Electoral College is bullshit.
Yeah. And, there's I would almost have rather had someone just completely ignorant than have someone like him who is just, like, one of the worst things is how unpredictable he was.
Yeah. His Dunning-Kruger, like, overconfidence in everything made it so much worse, too. Oh, my God.
Yeah, like, sorry that I'm repeating myself to my community, but, like, one of those things that I talked about with a lot of other streamers is, like, after he sort of supported all over national news the use of drinking, diluted bleach for treatment of COVID, I actually saw patient deaths in my local hospital from it.
Yep. Did you see an uptick of people putting UV lights up their butts? Because that would also seem like something that... Sorry, I don't mean to make
Fortunately not.
Okay.
But yeah, I didn't watch the impeachment trials, but I hope that was a part of it too.
It wasn't. It was not. He got acquitted today, also.
Oh God.
Yep. 7, I think, Republicans voted to convict, which is the most from someone's own party in history. But yep, still short.
Well, because in addition to impeachment, I think he needs to be tried for crimes against humanity.
Yeah, well, I don't see that happening.
I don't either. Yeah, I don't either.
Well, on the brighter side of things, vaccinations are going out. People who are responsible are taking them. I don't know. How do you see this? Obviously things have gotten really bad, but do you have any positive insight moving forward? Do you think things are going to start getting any better now that like the vaccines are starting to get en masse distributed? Or do you foresee nothing but darkness for the future? No pressure.
I think the only way to address how fucking horrible the vaccine rollout has been in terms of like, yes, have we, vaccinated more and more and more people? Yeah. Have we vaccinated enough people, proportionally to our population? Fuck no. However, yes, there is good news, and people in my community are not familiar with good news from me. There is good news on the horizon in terms of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
Is that one single dose, or is that...
Yep, that is a beautiful, beautiful vaccine. It's single dose. It has 4 degrees Celsius, non-stringent temperature requirements. Nice. It's cheaper than Pfizer and Moderna.
Is that an mRNA vaccine as well, or is that a more traditional vaccine?
It's more of a traditional vaccine. Yeah, so once that gets approved, which I foresee to be soon, they submitted for EUA last week. That'll be like the workhorse around the world.
Sure.
Like right now, globally, there's a huge problem as well, which I'm sure you've read upon too, of a lot more of the wealthier countries, snapping up the Pfizer and Moderna.
Yeah.
Or being able to buy massive, amounts of it. Mm-hmm. Whereas other countries are, completely left in the dust.
Yeah. Hopefully, especially with... I would imagine it's difficult with the storage constraints of the other vaccines as well, because some of them have to be kept at, like, sub-zero temperature. Yeah. That's got to be difficult in terms of transportation, especially to areas with less developed economies where it might be more difficult to get like a sub-zero freezer and stuff, but
and just as a point of clarification, because I don't want to assume that people in either of our communities know, when Han and I discussed the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, I'd like to discuss it just a little teeny bit more in depth. So it's like it's a adenovirus vaccine, just similar to how the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine is created. That includes the spike protein within it, as well as the adenovirus being deactivated for its mechanisms of a mass replication. So that's how that vaccine uses that delivery mechanism to have your body producing spike protein. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like communities that a lot of rural communities or communities that don't have hospitals capable of even affording extreme temperature freezers, like for example, the Pfizer needs to be stored at negative 70 degrees Celsius and the Moderna needs to be stored at around negative 20, which for a lot of communities and smaller hospitals, even that, even negative 20 is extremely difficult for storage. So yes, do I see light on the horizon once Johnson & Johnson gets approved, which I foresee to be like within the next week or so? That'll be the workhorse, not only in our country, but as well as in countries, less developed countries that have less economic power to be able to buy like mass amounts of the Pfizer and Moderna. Because unfortunately, capitalism is something very much involved in. I see you you're laughing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Capitalism, that's not something we ever talk about on this show.
Yeah, I have a long, I think, Baja, I think our discussion lasted like 3 days. Just like both of us scientists just mauling about intellectual property and
Yeah.
laws in place to protect intellectual property and yeah.
I genuinely wonder how much public funds from around the world went into the development of these vaccines versus how much money they're going to make on them privately because they're private companies.
So can you reiterate that statement?
I said, I wonder how much public money went into the development of these vaccines globally versus how much they're going to make in profit when it's all said and done because they're private companies.
Yeah, and I think part of the industry's willingness to just pour such massive amounts of money into it, which is how we got to the vaccine so quickly, is because they have a lot of faith that they're gonna get way more than their return.
Yep.
Yeah, like AstraZeneca was like lauded for just saying that, like, hey, we're gonna sell our vaccine at a not-for-profit level.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like that's not worthy of praise. I mean, it's a better practice, than other companies have been taking, but
It's just not worthy of scorn as opposed to the other companies, which should be shamed constantly. Not that it matters. Companies are immune from shame, but I don't know. It's just gross.
yeah, every time I order over-the-counter medications out of convenience on Amazon, I like slap myself in the face for doing it.
You know.
Yeah, but there is good news on the horizon. However, something that I'm most immediately concerned about, and the whole entire medical field right now is most immediately concerned about. Number one is the fact that there's been no like urge by, you know, the CDC to mandate the TSA to at least have the very minimum of COVID tests as a prerequisite for travel.
Yeah.
The most recent sort of statement by the CDC, in fact, has sort of been like, hey, at this time, we've deliberated and we have made the decision not to do so.
Why?
Which, like Hannah, it's the most bare minimum thing, right? Is requiring.
Yeah. But don't you care about the freedoms? I have the freedom to go on an airplane and infect hundreds of other people. Stupid.
Yeah, and the next thing we're most concerned about that is not a conspiracy theory that has actually still extremely divided the scientific and medical community, to the point where like I've seen even very established epidemiologists on YouTube and stuff have these takes, is the opening of schools. And before I go further into it, I want to hear your opinion on the opening of schools before I go further into it.
Okay, I understand that a lot of students are probably struggling. Being a kid and a teenager is hard enough, much less being separated from all your friends for months and months and months, a year at a time. I understand that. I'm sure it's difficult. I'm sure many people are facing difficulties with adapting to like online learning, and that's certainly an issue that needs to be addressed, but that doesn't mean we need to throw people into a building in close quarters together while we're still dealing with a pandemic that we're just now trying to get a handle on. I think it's a bad idea, and they still need to wait it out, but I don't know. I'm not a doctor, so what do you think?
And I was wondering then, subsequently, Hannah, what your take is then on the CDC's recommendation that it's optional for teachers to be vaccinated or not for the schools to be open.
God, why? Why? That's terrible. If they're gonna open the school, every single teacher needs to be vaccinated. Frankly, I think all the kids should be vaccinated too, but that's a non-starter. At the very least, all the administrative staff and the teachers need to be vaccinated. And if you don't want it, or I understand if you have a legitimate medical exemption, like a real one, like you're allergic to something, if it's one of the non-mRNA vaccines or whatever, fine. But, like, if you are capable of getting the vaccine, you should be forced to do it. Not forced, not strapped down, but if you are unwilling to do it, okay, that's it. You don't get to be a teacher then right now.
Yeah, and it's the CDC is leaving it up to school boards to determine whether they think their teachers are essential workers or not. That should be part of the first phase of vaccine administration.
Oh my god.
I don't think it's debatable.
No, it's not.
I mean, especially when, we have already seen in our country more infectious variants, showing up and existing and likely, playing a part in an increased number of cases in the next coming months, right? I mean, the B1351 variant, in which the E484K mutation was first seen, that's a South Africa variant, right? The UK B117 variant, the P1 variant from Brazil, all of which have shown like an increased level of transmissibility. Most recently sort of supported by data from Israel, where they've seen like a 40% rise, I think, almost, in coronavirus cases in teenagers and children.
Yikes.
Where Israel is even like, we're not opening schools because we have way higher incidences of these variants in our country. So, please be aware, America, of what we're seeing, please. And we're just not taking that into account. Hannah, the worst thing, Hannah, where I work in my hospital, it is divided 50-50 amongst doctors whether schools should be open. A lot of part due to the fact that a lot of doctors just have frustrations with, being involved more in the schooling of their children. And I do understand, a lot of people also supporting schools opening are people that unfortunately have a situation where they can't afford childcare or are using schools as childcare or daycares, right? But wouldn't you think that that's part of the responsibility of the state or federal government to be able to address that discrepancy, as well as discrepancies in the communities with access to laptops, to internet?
More than ever, the last year has blown wide open the holes in our social fabric. It has illustrated how vulnerable so many people in our society are, and how many are basically living paycheck to paycheck and on a wing and a prayer. Like, they cannot deal with any sort of inconvenience for any amount of time because, the social structure is not set up for that. If you can't constantly toil your life away, you're screwed. And our social, our political system is not set up to help individual people either. You just wind up with trillions of dollars going to huge businesses. It's terrible. It's completely, it's unsustainable. You cannot sustain a society that functions like this.
And, because... And this goes into something else that I'm going to plug, if that's okay with you.
Go for it.
And because of, these discrepancies in our society, where right now, we're just waiting on our federal government. A lot of people are just waiting on our federal government to deliberate. We can't fucking wait anymore, right? I mean, this past week has been one of the most horrendous weeks for patient care in my life. Not even because of patient death in the ICU, but because of patients acquiring COVID in situations, that could be avoidable if they did not have to put themselves in work situations where they're mistreated as employees and their health as employees is not being taken into credence by their employers. If they received stimulus benefit from the government to stay locked down, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I want to at least try to do using Twitch, and I'm really, really hoping at least you can help me with this because you have an extremely big platform, is I really want to do like a charity stream for COVID mutual aid. Like a 48-hour thing that
Sure.
I think at the very least, like in the left, right, we talk about mutual aid all the time, right? But I think now's the time to try to at least implement it to have some semblance of an impact.
Of course, I'd be happy to be a part of that.
Yeah, and if it's okay with you, on the side, I'll invite you to the Discord I made for all that. But like,
Sure.
That's perhaps one of the things more recently I've just been just so frustrated with.
It is. It's everything's frustrating all the time now. One of my people in chat asks, could I ask if you have any suggestions for teachers who have to teach in the classroom?
Yeah, so studies that have shown, most notably a study in North Carolina involving 11 school districts that have shown, over a long period of time, little to no, I think no in this case of this study, transmission from the kids to the adults working in schools. The success of those studies are contingent upon everyone in the school, following strict social distancing PPE guidelines. And the best way for you personally to, protect yourself as well as others that you work with, because you have to be in person, is to not only enforce for yourself strict social distancing, right? Masking, even double masking has been the latest, very valid latest recommendation. But, being sort of an advocate as a teacher, right, in your own school to force sort of, or to convince everyone, to do that. Because the success of those studies that people are using to try to convince people politically to open schools, the success of those studies are contingent upon enforcing all the possible precautions that could be enforced, that those schools did, and that those schools were able to maintain to a high standard, right? Everyone, even the kids, wearing masks or double masking, right? Staying 6 feet apart, social distancing, washing hands. All of that was enforced to a very high level, and I think if in addition to doing it yourself, I think one of the most important things, because you're stuck in that situation, is to be an advocate in your school. Sorry, Hannah, you were saying something too.
I was just gonna say I saw the most frustrating thing a while back. It was a school board or a school administration that basically said, well, we can't really enforce the mask mandate. How are we going to enforce that? Meanwhile, when I was in school, a teacher could spot a girl wearing spaghetti straps from a mile away and go and send her home because they weren't like 2 or 3 finger widths wide, and it's just weird. Mm-hmm. It's it just makes me want to make noises that mean nothing.
Don't worry, I've been doing that off stream a lot. Oh yeah, and contact tracing and testing in the schools too. Yeah, someone in your chat mentioned it. I forgot to mention that.
I saw one school, and it was pretty interesting. Basically gave all the students little tracker things to hang on, like, their clothes or their backpack or whatever. Mm-hmm. And in cases of, someone getting sick, they could contact trace based on the location data where they were by everyone in the school. And of course, I saw this not on a great news program or anything. I saw this on a conspiracy channel that was telling me, oh, wow, they're teaching children to be tracked at all times. As if you're not already because of your phone. Everyone is frustrating all the time.
Yeah, and the most annoying thing I've seen too, Hannah, are schools that enforce strictly the social distancing and things like that, and mask wearing in their schools, and then subsequently, sorry. The worst thing is schools that understand that they shouldn't be open and have been completely virtual, but still are allowing all of their sports teams to practice in person.
Oh God, I didn't even know that was a thing. You're breaking up. I can't. Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, you're back. Sorry, you were just breaking up for a second.
No worries. Where in peer-reviewed research, one of the major incidences of school transmission occurred in, athletics.
Ridiculous. Are they even hosting games right now? Why do they feel the need to practice?
They are, yeah. A lot of them are.
Jesus Christ. People are idiots.
Like, it's so ironic. They're like full in person. They're full virtual, but they're holding football games and practices and. Yeah, someone in your chat said stop talking about my district.
Ugh.
Yeah, and I think Hannah, you can agree with me that that's been a large fault from the federal government, and it still is the lack of coherent messaging that is, incorporates support from peer-reviewed research as well.
Yeah. I don't know. I have no faith in the federal government after the last 4 years, so we'll see what happens.
Even with the new administration, right? Even with the new administration, for the past 2 hours on your stream, we've been talking about mixed messaging from the CDC. Not directly, but we have been, right? And like mixed messaging from the CDC that arguably is translatably very harmful.
Yeah. I think I saw something too that was like the CDC was saying like once you get vaccinated, it's okay to ignore. And again, this was secondhand information from another article, so it's possible the article was just horribly misinterpreting it. But it was something along the lines of like, if you get the vaccine, you don't have to worry so much about masks and 6 feet distance. And I was like, oh, God. That's a bad idea for a number of reasons, up to and including giving anti-maskers cover. They'll just be able to say, oh, I had the vaccine, even when they didn't. And I know they give you those card things, but the first day the vaccines were getting put out, I was looking at right-wing forums, and they already had a fake version of the vaccine card that you could print out and make bullshit up on, so.
Well, so to clarify, actually, and, this is from memory of the primary source, if someone can just give me the primary source, but, in the interest of time, I'm just going to say what I remember. It's even more controversial because they also said something about a 3-month following receipt of the last dose of the series of your vaccine, where you're able to not follow quarantine and see people. And people started interpreting the 3 months as a CDC saying that
the vaccine
immunity to the vaccines.
3 months.
Yeah. Which is, once again, a problem with their messaging.
Yeah, it is.
It's not 3 months. Because, I've been the one that had to clarify. It's not 3 months because of a drop in immunity, right? It's 3 months because that's the information that the CDC took into account so far that exists in the literature that falls in line with their recommendation.
Yeah. I don't know if a bunch of people left the CDC over the last 4 years because of the last administration, but they're dropping the ball hard.
Well, so a large part of that is, that restructuring I told you about of the CDC by the Trump administration that occurred. That, from what I understand, is still remains restructured in the way that the Trump administration left it. Unless unless you have heard anything, which I haven't, from the Biden administration, that they're restructuring it.
I hope they get to it soon. You'd think that would be pretty high on the priority list, but I understand there's a lot of fires to put out. But yeah, they need to get on that ASAP.
Yeah, I think the only sort of new thing I heard about was the what's it called? His appointment of Dr. Rachel Levine, as assistant health secretary or something like that.
Yep.
But the messaging has been so mixed. Has she actually started working then?
No idea.
Or is it still just an arbitrary appointment?
All the coverage I saw of that, because of the places I go for the show and stuff, were just really transphobic. So I'm not sure about the actual logistics of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for sure. I have a lot of hope still, for the administration, the new one, to do the right thing because simply, in many instances, not all, but in many instances, all they have to do is just the complete opposite of what the last administration did.
Yeah.
But politically, I don't know how it's hashing out. Or since you've asked me, do I have hope? I'm going to ask you, Hannah. Politically, do you have hope in our current administration doing?
I have, let me put it, I have a 60% hope versus 40% pessimism about the current administration's ability to put forth effective messaging and methods as time goes on. Now, the actual efficacy of these things is going to go down because there are so many states that are completely resistant to any sort of anything, basically. No lockdowns, no mask mandates, nothing. But I don't know. I don't know. It's a problem with how our government is structured. Like the federal government only has so much power in regard to mandating things like that to the states. It'd get tied up in lawsuits. A lot of it just has to do with the fact that the Republican Party has gone off the complete deep end and, is in conspiracy land. But also on top of that, the Biden administration is kind of milquetoast. He's like a center right type person. But I think he's trying. I don't know. I have no idea. I really don't. I'm gonna hope for the best, though.
It's like every time I read the news, it's just more perplexing to me as like a, doctor and scientist, right? Like most recently, I just went on the fucking news this morning, and like Minnesota or some state, dropped the recommended mask requirements. Like, why is the federal government letting states to determine mask requirements when there is a federally or supposed to be federally mandated mask requirement?
It's a federally mandated mask requirement, but it only applies on federal property because that's what they're allowed to dictate via executive order.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. And I think on the property of federal government contractors as well. So if you went to like Boeing or you went to SpaceX, they probably are having to do some sort of mask mandate because they contract with the federal government. I'm not entirely clear on that, though, but it's definitely like federal buildings.
Mm-hmm. Oh, geez.
But outside of that, no, it's just the
scientifically, scientifically at least, I have hope and I have good news.
Yeah. I think this year will be better than last year. I'll put it like that. Will things be perfect?
Yeah.
No. Will dumb, terrible things continue to happen? Yeah, but hopefully fewer of them.
Yeah, I mean, like this week the AstraZeneca vaccine finally started their vaccine trial for children between 6 and 17. Okay. Once again, people correct me if I'm wrong, remembering this from the top of my head. And the Pfizer and Moderna have had for the past month their own trials in children. So in terms of expanding the use of the vaccine, to child populations or other populations, that is existing too. And I have high hopes that those trials will be successful, and we'll be able to vaccinate a much larger portion of that population too.
Yeah.
But right, like as we discussed, right, when the science determines these positive things, right, then subsequently it's up to the government to, logistically roll out the vaccine to those populations.
We should probably give politicians scientific literacy classes. That'd be great.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, and maybe like none of us will ever know because we don't work there. Mm-hmm. Is like for the most part, and I'd like to clarify again, for the most part, Dr. Fauci has had pretty good takes for the most part. It's like, in terms of taking scientific literacy classes, they have a scientist and a doctor there.
Yeah.
In the federal government that, now has been sort of let out of his cage more. I'm wondering why it doesn't seem like he's being very involved in these decisions.
I don't know. Antipodian Squid asks, any news on a pediatric vaccine for 5 and under?
As far as I know, not yet, no.
Okay. Well, that's why it's important for people to get it as adults. So, when it's available to them, of course. So, hopefully we can do some herd immunity stuff without a bunch of people having to catch it.
Yeah. Yeah, Antipodian Squid, I don't know if you heard what I was saying earlier to Hannah, but, you know, what did start in terms of an age as close to 5 as you can get is, you know, AstraZeneca's trial between of children aged 6 to 17. You know, that started this week. So it's getting there. But yeah, right, like, you know, kids are a population where, you know, they very commonly are more asymptomatic than symptomatic, and they're, you know, compared to adults, less likely to transmit. So, you know, right now, right, like, we know we can vaccinate adults, and we're not even doing that to the full extent as we should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this conversation has both been enlightening, depressing, but also maybe a little bit of hope there. And I think that's good.
You know, and I'd like to give you the award, Hannah, for having the conversation with the most hope that I've had so far.
I tried. I knew this was going to be depressing. So I tried to put a little bit of, I don't know, maybe we're not doomed. I don't know. We'll see. To be clear, we very well may be doomed. A lot of people are already dead. It's not good. But, I don't know, tunnels sometimes have lights at the end of them.
Yeah, and one of the things I say a lot is, you know, in terms of things like I'm concerned about, one of the things I say a lot on stream is I hope I'm wrong. I hope everything I say in terms of what I'm concerned about is very, very, very wrong. Yeah. You know? You know, but until then, right, I think it's important to express to the general public these concerns that we're having, you know, that echo the same concerns you seem to have too, Hannah.
Yeah. So, yeah. Thanks for coming on and sharing all this with us. It's been very informative.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. You know, it's been a long time coming. I really, really, really appreciate you having me on your show.
Of course.
I'd also like to thank you in person for the raid you gave me about a month ago.
Sure.
Or like 2-3 weeks ago. But I did not get to thank you in person for, so thank you so much.
Of course, and everyone in the chat, go check out Doc Midnight's channel. For some reason, I'm looking right now, and I'm not followed to you, and I don't know why. I thought I followed, like, the first time I raided you, but I guess not. So there you go.
Oh, it's all good. But yeah, if it's okay with you, like maybe in the next couple of weeks, I'll let you know if there's anything to update more, and then, you know, we can have a chat again.
Okay.
Because I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, it was good. I had fun.
Yeah, but you know, until then, thank you for, you know, reminding me. I do have another talk to prepare for with Trash Can 1312.
All right. Well, I hope that goes well. You're just like a talking machine.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you so much, Hannah, and, you know, to your community, Hannah, thank you so much for having me on. If there are any questions that I was not able to address, feel free to go into my Discord and post the questions. I really, really appreciate your time, Hannah, and all of the time of your community as well.
Oh, your time too. Thank you for coming on. We really all appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Thank you so much.
Yep. Have a good one.
All right. Yep. You too. Till next time.
Yep. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Well, that was very interesting. Again, chat, make sure you go check out Doc Midnight's channel on Twitch. Link in the description. I hope we're not all doomed. Ooh, gift subscriptions are 10% off. What a great time to give subs to the community, wink wink. A bunch of people did earlier, actually, and I appreciate that. Let me get to the bits messages. We have a ton from this chat so far, obviously. MH Darkbeast says I might dig this. Let me see what it is before we do bits messages, and then we'll go to the other thing from today. This is about The Wizard of Oz. Oh, Dorothy being a lesbian. Gosh darn, this earring keeps popping off. Every time. Every single time. Hold on, let me tighten this a little bit. I gotta get my... Once COVID's not as much of a concern, I gotta get my ears actually pierced so this shit doesn't happen. Or if it does happen, something terrible has happened to my ear. Get little rubber stoppers if it's a hook earring. Okay. Let's see how long that stays on. Oh, and the other one fell... Okay. That's the... I can't with these. God damn it. Well, I tried. I tried to be pretty. Vorkvoid, thank you for hosting. NB Gamer, thank you for resubscribing with 8 months. Says, thanks, KR. Oh, I read that one earlier today. Daddy Sume says, Daddy has arrived. Size Queens. Math Rave, thank you for 100 bits. Says, you're neat. Mike Max 321 says, did you see the girl that made fun of the cancer patient went on a racist rant against Mexicans and Germans? I'm not shocked. Rescue oh boy. Rescues something algorithms. Thank you for subscribing. Yeah, I won't go to a place with a gun. I know it'll be more prone to infections and stuff. Ashy Boo says, Hanny, you look gorgeous today. I love the earrings. Thank you. Mitchell Drummer with 155 bits. Thank you. Chrissia, thank you for gifting subs to the community. Like 10 of them, I think. Purple Nickel with 100 bits says, choo choo, time for a hype train. That was from way earlier. Bardlock Moses says, Florida is underreporting because they want the theme parks open and people working. Yeah. MW1642, thanks for the bits. Wicked Beta, thank you for gifting a sub. Gifting 5 subs. Bardlock Moses with 100 bits says, I've known one person that died and like 2 people that still suffer from effects of COVID. Sorry to hear that. Chapomon, thank you for resubscribing with 9 months, says, let's name our stream baby something furry-based. I found a video on controversial furries, which goes over a few furry chuds created by a furry that seemed chuddy himself for another day. If you post that again. What's a furry name? I don't even know what furry names are. Chat, tell me some furry names and we'll name the baby. Batty Bell, thank you for gifting subs to the community. That Zombie Lady, thank you for resubscribing with 2 months. Daddy Sume says, same, Hannah. Don't know what that was in regard to. Mitchell Drummer with 80 bits. Parmachine, thank you for following. Someone says Ashwolf Darkbite. Yep, Ashwolf Darkbite it is. Ashwolf Darkbite. Mewthil, thank you for resubscribing with 3 months. Today also happens to be my de-quarantine day. It's been a stupid long 10 days. Nice. Purple Nickel with 100 bets says, once had a customer straight up tell me to my face that COVID was a bioweapon. Also had someone tell me I was very brave in doing the right thing by not wearing a mask. Ugh. Bardlock Moses with 100 bits. They don't believe in logic, so you can't change their minds with logic. Faye the Wanderer, thank you for following. Mike Max with 20 bits. Seatbelts were a political issue until they when they were invented, just like masks. Also, at this point, world government should just try to stop or slow down any pandemics and epidemics as soon as possible. People, rather than give away some money for this than life, these anti-maskers are just scared and can't comprehend that a pandemic will happen in their time. That's why they're trying to ignore it. History repeats itself now. It's time to learn from it and prepare for the future. Who the Physilis, thank you for following. Phil the Bronxite, thank you for following. That XY girl with 20 bits. We're almost done, by the way, with the bits messages. We have discovered that this drug is shown to reduce the spread of cancerous cells in mice under laboratory conditions. Haha, cancer go burr. Frick the Police, thanks for following. New Mangogs, thank you for resubscribing. Bardlock Moses says, I would have gotten my shot, but it's effed up in Florida. Tom G666, thank you for subscribing with 9 months, says Hunt Henry. Our sub baby's name is Henry. I can live with that. Sarah Janey, thanks for following. Massive Robertson, thanks for gifting a sub. Real Monster, thank you for following. And Invader Blue, thank you for following. And we're all caught up. We did it. 2 hours worth of bit messages. All set. Beautiful. Oh boy, now's the part of the show I'm not looking forward to, and I don't know why I decided to do this. So, what's her name? Gina Carano from The Mandalorian has been let go by Disney. Her contract, as I am aware, was already up, but they planned on bringing her back potentially in future seasons of The Mandalorian, and now they're not. There was also talk of giving her her own spin-off. You've seen that Disney Plus is doing a ton of Disney and Marvel shows. They were going to give her a spin-off, but she screwed it up by being a chud. So don't do that. Here's what she tweeted. She tweeted, and I'm not joking. Is this tweet still up? Here it is. Gina is comparing being a conservative to being a Jew during the Holocaust. She thinks that cancel culture is literally the same as what Jewish people suffered during the Holocaust. She also made fun of pronouns by saying her pronouns are beep, boop, and bop. Which even as a trans person was the lesser offense than the Holocaust comment. And then she did some right-wing voter fraud conspiracy and also did some anti-mask stuff. All things that it makes sense to be fired for when your entire job, half of your job, is public relations as an actor. So, are we shocked? As it turns out, a lot of people are shocked. You know who's shocked? The Quartering. The Quartering's not happy about this. The Quartering did a super stream. No, sorry, he called it a mega stream. Apologies. With a bunch of other media chuds like Nerdrotic and some other people. I think Doomcock is a part of this conversation. And they had a big old stream where they just whined about it. So let's see them whine about a right-wing piece of shit getting fired.
This is the first time I've used this software. Yeah. So
let's get to the part where they actually get together.
Just setting up my monitor so
it's a 5-hour-long stream. So surprise, we're not watching the whole thing, but I did want to check some of it out. Can you imagine doing a 5-hour-long stream because someone got fired from their job for being a chud? And being mad about it?
Oh, that guy's an asshole.
I didn't see it.
Him and his
you're probably
his boss.
blocked.
Oh,
yeah.
What did they say? Oh, but would you mind letting people know a little nugget of, you know, what is a rumor? Just an rumor. And by the way, I should say, he has been right about many things in the past, including and this is me speaking, not this isn't like a prepared. He was right about the Rise of Skywalker. He's been right about a lot of other things that
he wasn't. He was not. I believe they're talking about Doomcock, and they're also talking about some of these other fandom menace people who make up rumors, and then they're like wrong 99% of the time, but 1% of the time the thing they say might at least partially come true. Or in the case of Rise of Skywalker, they get legitimate leaks that everyone had access to online for like weeks going up to the movie, and they're like, oh, you know everything! You have inside sources in Disney! It's very, very sad.
Doesn't make this right, but this isn't just some unsubstantiated rumor, so
it's that. I assume they're going to talk about the rumor that Disney's going to hire her back, even though it's been like a day since she got fired. Even James Gunn, it took like 3 years for Disney to hire him again, and frankly, James Gunn is talented. This lady isn't. I've seen her act. I've watched The Mandalorian. She's serviceable. She's not that great.
What are you hearing about behind the scenes of it?
Well, my folks have said that everything that I reported in this last video has gotten 3 confirmations from different people. Okay. Now, I can't independently verify it, so I'm still presenting it absolutely as rumor. Please.
What a shock. He has a video over here that we were going to watch. That, yeah, they say that Disney's reeling from the backlash. Are they going to uncancel? Out of curiosity, I went to go see how the Disney stock is doing in relation to this news. It's doing fine. Disney stock is fine.
Please take it with a grain of salt, but ultimately, Disney, the gist of it is that this information was not supposed to get out till later. That they did not want this announced just before their investor call.
Yeah, I can't imagine that they wanted that. Even the early confirmations were like an unnamed Lucasfilm source.
Yep.
So I was like,
person.
Well, it seems pretty strategic considering they announced that she's no longer with them, but then, oh, Pedro Pascal is what's his name from The Last of Us 2.
Yeah.
And the way they worded it.
Those are completely different companies. I don't think The Last of Us 2 is getting made by Disney. You think they coordinated?
Is they didn't say we fired her. It made it sound like, well, her contract ran out. She no longer works with us anymore.
Yeah, that's often how things work in Hollywood. She was contracted for the role that she did on The Mandalorian, and then they're just like, oh, you're bad for our public image, so we're not going to hire you anymore, and that spinoff we were talking about, we're not going to do it now.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't work, and I don't think they were expecting quite this backlash, but...
What? No one cares! No one cares what a bunch of nerds on the internet think! Now, to be fair, no one gives a shit what I think either, at least not in the Disney massive corporation sense. They did this thing, and this is hilarious. I tweeted about it. They're starting a campaign, these group of people, to cancel Disney Plus. So they've now resorted to cancel culture because they don't like that Disney canceled someone. Like, do they not understand the irony of them saying, this company did a thing I don't like, let's cancel them? Like, yeah, you're participating in the marketplace the same way all the rest of us are. You're just being a hypocrite about it. It's kind of funny. But it's never been that they don't like the fact that there are consequences for people's actions. It's just that they think that the actions that cause the consequences are fine. They just think it's fine. They just like her because she's also a chud.
Said, you know, this is Disney taking the path of least resistance. You know, you guys were talking about Yahtzee being used over and over again. It's working. It's absolutely working. The constantly calling us and everyone else Yahtzee is it's to the point now where these companies...
I'm assuming that's a dog whistle they're using for Nazi because they don't want to use that in the video because they don't want to get demonetized.
Can't even side with somebody who even might be considered somewhat conservative or center now.
Somewhat conservative or center. Again. Really? Really? And the anti-mask? Really? What a joke.
Because you're bending the knee to Yahtzees. So they're forced to not to defend Disney because they probably make this decision anyway. But now we're at the bottom of the slippery slope after, I mean, just, you know, I was a little surprised.
If the bottom of the slippery slope is that a single actress from Star Wars gets fired or not employed in the future by Disney, why are you so worried about that slippery slope?
About the firing, but then I'm like, why should I be? After last year and everything we saw in the last month, not surprised at all. And it's unfortunate the way she put her, it wasn't the most graceful analogy in the world, but it was just an analogy and it didn't offend me.
If something didn't offend me personally, no one else is allowed to think it's wrong.
You know, and not much offends me.
I'm sure I'm sure it didn't offend you because you're one of the people like that. You're a conservative. You're more than a conservative if you're in this chat, by the way, too, in this live stream thing. Of course you want to compare yourself to Jewish people during the Holocaust. You're perpetual victims.
It's just words. And she's not wrong. She's not right. And what many of you said is what happened afterwards. She proved she was right.
I don't think really anybody was offended by it. They just...
Not being hired by Disney is literally the same as being gassed. Did you know that? A genocide is literally the same as not being rehired by Disney for future projects.
They've taken it because they knew they could.
Yeah, they'll just use whatever they can against her at this point.
No, well, that's true, and I mean that's why I said it was a mistake. I mean, when you are already being looked at and scrutinized, and they're looking for any excuse to can your ass, don't do an analogy like
any excuse. Disney was planning on doing a spin-off show with her. Disney likes one thing: money. Disney likes money. And when you're doing stuff like this and making the company look bad and hurting their public image by being a complete asshole, don't be surprised when they choose not to work with you. Like, you can be mad. You can be like, I don't like that Disney doesn't agree with me politically. But what they did is fine. You're just mad that the general public doesn't agree with you. You're in the minority politically, and you don't like the fact that the market, which you all slobber over constantly, is now deciding that your opinions kind of make them look bad.
Like that. In fact, that's my advice for both sides of the political divide. Let's leave those kinds of analogies off the table, because all it does is muddy the water, and it ends your argument and the good, valid point you're trying to make before you ever get a chance to convey it properly. It just like you start along that path, it's people shut down, people get emotional, and frankly, it better be a damn good analogy, because that's one of the most horrific things in human history that ever happened, and you shouldn't deploy it lightly. But that said, nobody should be canceled for exercising their freedom of speech. I'm sick of.
For the record, this same exact guy, hold on, where is he? Overlord DVD is this guy. He's Doomcock. He is doing nothing but constantly being like, Kathleen Kennedy needs to be fired. Kathleen Kennedy needs to be fired. Jodie Whittaker needs to be fired because I don't like her. So he doesn't like when someone gets canceled for their abhorrent political opinions, but when someone puts a woman in the Star Wars or the Star Trek, then they deserve to be canceled. He's such a hypocrite.
Cancel culture, and that is ultimately the point of my first video, was that, look, I think that cancel culture is not simply attacking our fandom and stuff. It's attacking our very society, and it's attacking each of.
Have we not learned that first they come for the D-tier Star Wars actresses, and then they come for us, people in basements full of action figures that cater exclusively to neckbeard adult man children who are obsessed with Star Wars, a franchise for children?
Of us as sentient human beings, because ultimately they are asking us, they're trying to condition us to censor ourselves, not just our speech, but also our very thoughts. Because after a certain point, you get scared to even think certain things, lest it slip out.
That's called socialization. You're being socialized. Welcome to society, where it's not okay to say certain things that are just dickish. Now, of course, you're free to say those things, but you're going to suffer social consequences for them. As an example, this would be an extreme example, but if you want to go running down the street, yelling racial slurs, like, the police can't arrest you if you're in a public place. You're allowed to say whatever you want. But don't be surprised when you get a reputation and no one wants to deal with you. This is that. There are consequences for your actions. This is not cancel culture. This is consequence culture. Don't be mad that no one except your small group of weird right-wing nerds like your opinions. It's fine. You still have your YouTube channels. Go and talk your bullshit. No one's censoring you. They just don't like you.
In your speech, and then you get swarmed by the pod people and the ants on Twitter. I don't give a shit. I keep speaking out regardless, but that is a chilling effect on a lot of people, and I think it's atrocious.
What do you think, Lauren?
Well, I was gonna say, like, I kind of agree when it comes to like Holocaust comparisons. I just don't. Like, I have like a little flowchart in my mind. It's like, before you compare something to the Holocaust,
Yeah.
is it the actual Holocaust? Yes,
Right.
Go ahead. No, just don't. But I guess in defense of the post that she shared, I do like a lot of people are saying like you're comparing extermination and genocide to how Republicans are treated. That I mean, if you like actually read what she posted, that's not it at all. She's just saying that, you know, when you start to dehumanize people who you're different.
It's literally what she's saying. The post had a picture. The post has a picture of a Jewish person running away from attackers during the Holocaust. Like she's saying very specifically, this is a slippery slope, and conservatives are about to become the new victims of a Holocaust.
From it can be a slippery slope where
okay, so you understand exactly what she was saying.
you stop caring about them, where you know the hatred grows. And so I felt bad for her, where it's like you have someone like Pedro Pascal who is literally using Holocaust comparisons, like actual comparisons, and that's totally fine. Like that's what bothered me. And
as it turns out, people are okay with calling fascists fascists, and they're not okay with calling fascists the opposite of that. They don't like when fascists victimize themselves, but they do like when fascists get called fascists. Weird how that works, huh?
Obviously they don't care about the double standard, but it's like if you're someone who is not even a conservative but just a centrist or just not pro woke, I think this should concern you. Like they're
he
pretty much targeting you.
He called 75 million people Nazis.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, and Drury Nitpicker in chat says,
all we did was put a bunch of migrant children in cages. Why do they keep calling us Nazis?
As a Jew myself, it doesn't offend me. I know you're not speaking for all Jews, but this is just for you.
Is Jeremy actually Jewish? I don't care either way. It's just not something I was familiar with.
Because what you said was 100% right. And if you're too stupid to understand what she was saying, that's on you. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
Jeremy, we're not too stupid to understand. We understand, and it's disgusting. Comparing your shitty ideology, your fucking right-wing bullshit, to being, like, a victim of... How do I put this? Considering the real-world consequences for your shitty, xenophobic, backwards beliefs, and comparing yourself to Holocaust victims because you are facing consequences for what you are doing and saying is disgusting. That's fucked up. That's what she got fired for.
Well, I mean, that's exactly what Jesse Miles.
Oh, he was reading a chat message. Gotcha.
Milestone said too, and she's, you know, very open about her Judaism, and she just came out with a video on it as well. But you don't have to be Jewish to look at the tweet or the post and understand what she was saying. They're just purposely twisting it because they have a goal, they have an agenda, which is to...
Why do they think we don't understand the tweet? I don't think they understand the issue with the tweet that we have, because we understand the tweet. The tweet itself is disgusting for what exactly they are saying it is.
Get her out of there because they don't like her. I mean, if Disney was smart, they should just overall have a no tolerance for any of it, because both sides are hurting their business. And if you want to make...
Not really. Like corporate brand wokeness, Lindsay Ellis has a really good video on this, does help sell shit. People like to give money to companies, not necessarily you and I, because we, I think, see through that shit, and I don't really decide what company I'm gonna based on that stuff. But like, that does work on people. They're like, oh, look, they did it's Pride Month and they did a rainbow thing. Yay! You know, I don't know.
Make money, which I'm assuming they would. They should, if you're going to say this on this side, then equal for the other side, you know?
Yeah, and that's, by the way, that's in order of guests who got top right, that Star Wars girl. If you're not subscribed to her, please do. Lauren Chen just dropped a brand new video while we're live streaming, so you make sure you check that out. She talks about Gina Carano. Then down on my lower left, just below me with a slightly better beard, we got Gary from Nerdrotic. In the center, Yellow Flash on top, and then Doomcock below. All of these channels are channels that I watch whenever they upload. Now, the way on the bottom, we've got Adam Krigler. Am I saying that right?
You did. You nailed it.
Krigler. I have embraced you in your home. We have. I've seen your lady doing laundry.
Yeah.
And what do you think? By the way, thanks for joining us. And
hold on, I can't help but notice that you said all of them and then said I watch all of these people's videos, and then you introduced me.
Well, Adam, I mean, if I need to spell it out for you. No, his channel is AdamCast IRL. He does a live stream and also standalone uploads. He also streams on Twitch occasionally when he gets expensive new graphics cards.
Live stream. Truth.
Yeah,
I want to add. Sorry, I wanted to add to.
How did they squeeze 5 hours of a stream out of this?
What Lauren was saying, because I was listening before you brought me in. You
couldn't they all have just gotten online and said, like, we actually think conspiracy theories about COVID are good? Wouldn't that be the end of the discussion?
Said, like, is it compared to the Holocaust? I mean, is it the Holocaust? Yes. All right, we can compare it. If not, it isn't. And then if you really look at what Gina was saying in the tweet that got her fired, the final straw that broke the back of her job, essentially, it's comparing to things that are actually happening. People are
we're racist, and we believe in conspiracy theories that are dangerous and actively helped foment insurrection against the United States government. We're literally victims, just like victims of the Holocaust, because people don't like our bullshit anymore, guys. Aren't we right? Let's talk about it for 5 hours.
Making fun of people and reeing at anyone not wearing a mask. If you're a Trump supporter, you're being corralled into this group of a terrorist. Being a patriot now is, she wasn't talking about the Holocaust. She was saying, look what led up to it. Look what.
Yes, everyone understands what she was saying. It's disgusting. Jesus Christ.
Happened. Look at history.
People think the Holocaust happened overnight, and
no, they don't, Jeremy. You fucking idiot.
Forget that they had. Wasn't Goebbels the guy, the official minister of truth for them, the propaganda guy? Like, they ran a propaganda campaign forever to dehumanize how people saw the Jews. That's, to me, like, how is this not obvious? But of course, Twitter's like, but she thinks she's a Jew in the Holocaust.
Yeah,
but
wasn't it Joe Biden that brought that up?
Accusing her of thinking she was a Jew, but also calling her anti-Semitic. So it's like,
yeah.
I don't know if I agree with the anti-Semitic claim, but if I had to play devil's advocate for a second, the idea would be that they are denigrating and underplaying the actual impact and severity of the Holocaust on the Jewish community by comparing it to a bunch of shit posters on the internet getting consequences for their actions. That would be where the anti-Semitism claims are coming from.
Right.
They also said she was. I also think it's hilarious that Twitter, just like with Chris Pratt, with her, they're first of all they said she's talking about Republicans. She never said Republicans, and everyone just assumes and lumps her in as a Trump supporter. But she again has never been open about her politics.
She's never been open about her politics. Hello? She's doing the haha pronouns beep boop beep thing, and she's an anti-masker. Jeremy, what do you think her politics are? Do you think she's a Biden supporter? So goddamn disingenuous.
Like, okay, you can make inferences that she's probably at the very least libertarian. But it's not like she's posting, like, I don't know, she doesn't post like super conservative stuff.
Really? She's working with Ben Shapiro now, by the way. Ben Shapiro hired her. Do you think we can maybe make inferences now, Jeremy? Can we make inferences about her belief system now that she's employed by Ben fucking Shapiro? Oh, God. I'm trying to see what other stuff she's got. Ugh. Jesus Christ, lady. Ugh. Champion.
like you know, Bible verses and stuff like that. At least I don't see it.
Oh, she retweeted the quartering too. Shocking.
She went against the
No.
narrative.
Right. I mean, you could be just a centrist and be classified as, you know, Stalin or something at this
But
point.
I mean,
What?
she could even be a classical liberal. Like a lot of the
Wait, wouldn't that imply that people are getting accused of being like leftists or communists without justification? He didn't say Hitler, he said Stalin.
stances she's kind of taking, like making fun of pronouns. I mean, people like James Lindsay, Peter Boghossian, like classical liberals who are still on the left, they still like kind of oppose this wokeness. So that's
Who?
why liberals who are still on pronouns. I mean, people like James Lindsay, Peter Boghossian.
They're not left. I assumed not, which is why I'm checking them out. The Chinese can. Classical liberals are just conservatives? Yeah. Classical liberals are conservatives who are embarrassed to say they're conservatives, or they're trying to shift the Overton window. Yeah, this guy is not a liberal.
Like classical liberals who are still on the left, they still
They don't appear to be on the left, guys. Are you shocked?
like kind of oppose this wokeness. So that's why it's like they're literally targeting not just conservatives, not just centrists, but anyone who is not like pro woke, which is ironically most people.
It's like 90% of the population. I
Yeah.
always,
But you have
I
to
was-
at least act like you're woke or you're gone.
yeah.
What happened to, look at Chris.
Which is why they had this 5-hour live stream all together and no one can view it. They have no platform, guys. They just got to sit here and bitch for 5 hours and get over 100,000 views on this channel alone. I assume this is in all these other people's channels too. So collectively, probably hundreds of thousands of people saw this. But they have no platform, guys! Where are conservatives going to go to be heard? Except for Fox News and most of YouTube and BitChute and a lot of places on Twitter and Breitbart, Newsmax, One America News. We have no sources of conservative media.
Chris Pratt does nothing. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't even have to tweet, and they try to cancel him. Like
He's
every
universally
other day.
loved. Yeah, and then they're
There's a reason Chris Pratt hasn't been fired, because he keeps his shit to himself.
like, because he didn't do this Joe Biden fundraiser.
They
he's
didn't even
absolutely-
invite him.
I know.
Yeah,
They're gonna
yeah.
make a character bisexual.
Yeah, that's how they got back at him. I don't want a tinfoil hat, but it feels like
Can't.
some writer did that to his character to stick it to
Oh,
him.
is
Maybe. It's kind of funny.
Al
Did I
Ewing?
confirm that he did that on purpose?
I don't know.
No, it's
How
Al
do you do
Ewing that
that?
wrote it. He's a
Good.
real piece of shit, Al Ewing. Big time.
Not a happy
Let me
person.
bring in one more wonderful guest. By the way, everyone on this panel, I don't know if I have any mods in chats, but it would be awesome if you linked their channels. This is Az from Heels versus Babyface. I'm looking forward to his video game coming out.
I'm going to skip ahead just to see where the conversation goes over 5 hours, just because obviously we're not going to sit here for 5 hours and listen to it.
Been fired for a little while or let go,
My guess is that's true.
Yeah. and she hasn't given a crap since then. And why should she? But yeah, when I saw that, I was laughing my ass off actually, and that's why I love her. You know, yes, you're absolutely right. We have these conversations, and these are conversations people are having in real life. The Twitter is not real life. In
Right.
the real world, this crap is not going on. But if you just sit on Twitter all day and watch anything from Hollywood, systematic racism, white supremacy are now just normal things. That's exactly what that's the
These are issues that people deal with. Systematic racism is not something that was conjured up by Hollywood, you idiot.
society we live
You remember when Charlottesville happened and that didn't happen? No, that happened. White supremacy is a fucking problem.
in.
Remember when a bunch of white supremacists and Trump supporters broke into the Capitol building and tried to kill Congress people? Oh, it's all just on Twitter, though. Don't worry about it, idiots.
And that's why we try to continue to call it out. And we tried for, at least I tried for a long, long time, and I know a lot of people here did, through pop culture. It was always bigger than Star Wars, right? So it was always bigger than Doctor Who.
I keep forgetting that this is all at the center of this is fucking Star Wars! Here's my hot take on Star Wars, okay? Are you ready for the take that everyone's gonna hate and people are gonna shit on me for? The vast majority of Star Wars media sucks! Star Wars mostly sucks! They're like, okay, here are the good Star Wars movies. A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, The Last Jedi. Those are the 3 good Star Wars movies. There are like 11 Star Wars movies. 3 of them are good. The Mandalorian's good. That's it. The rest of the franchise fucking sucks. George Lucas is a hack. I am sick of people pretending like Star Wars is this amazing franchise that there's so much material for. Oh, the universe is infinite and there's so much. No. You know what? No, there's not. There are 5 planets. There's a desert one. It's either Tatooine or Jakku. There's a snow one. There's a jungle moon of Endor. That's it. There's nothing. Star Wars kinda sucks. Bardlock Moses with 1,000 bits says Star Wars sucks. Stop bitching about a series that mostly sucks.
And here we are.
This is Dagobah Erasure. I didn't name all the planets, okay? There's Dagobah. There's, why can't I Coruscant. There's, the planet that Amidala lived on. Cloud City is on a planet. It doesn't matter.
I mean, is this the bottom of the slippery slope? I keep saying that, and then we reach a brand new bottom. But this was a shift of some kind, right? What happened last night, I don't know what Disney was thinking.
Let me be clear on that. I was being hyperbolic for a second because I think it's funny. I enjoy watching most of the Star Wars movies, but they're not great movies. They're really not. They're fun children's movies that are family movies, and you enjoy them growing up, and you enjoy them as an adult because of nostalgia, and also fun, silly action. That's it. The Mandalorian's an enjoyable series, but it's not, and it's well-produced, production value-wise, but it's not the deepest show. It's not, like, the most artistic thing in the fucking world. It's fine.
And if they thought that this will be a news cycle, it'll blow over, and it still could, but this is going to be a long news cycle.
You know they wanted this to, I believe Doomcock dipped. I don't know if he lost the connection or if he had shit going on. By the way, if anyone on the panel has to dip, or whatever, feel free. I mean, I want you to stay, but it's not like I'll hold a grudge forever and hate you. But I thought it was, this is a real L for. And again, it feels like it's a conservative L, but I don't even call myself conservative.
It doesn't matter if you call yourself that, Jeremy. You're a fucking Trump supporter. Everything you advocate for is right-wing. You are a conservative, and that's a nice thing to call you. That's if we're being generous. You don't have to label yourself for your political affiliation to be understood based on your opinions.
Traditionally, anyway. Remember when it was first it was tit for tat last time. It was they got Roseanne for a fucking joke. By the way, sorry if this Roseanne was one of the wokest shows ever. Like when that show was on in the fucking 90s, that was the first gay person I ever saw on TV, I think.
Yes, and a lot of that happened in the seasons where Roseanne did not have control of the writing staff. The last season of the show is when she had complete control and it was shit. And then she had a ton of control over the Roseanne reboot and it was shit. And then she got kicked off for calling a specific person of a specific racial group a monkey. Rightfully so, she got fired and the show got better. after her character was killed off.
Think. And there were 2 on that show, right? Her the redhead, and then the mom is eventually a lesbian. And like and the new Roseanne is like uber ultra double woke. So they fire her. I thought the bitch was white. Fired her, and then they got her. Then we got James Gunn. They got Gina Carano. So
no, James Gunn's back. Actually, James Gunn, because of that right-wing smear campaign, got more work than ever. Because now he's working for both DC and Marvel. He's making the new Suicide Squad movie, and he's now coming back to do Guardians of the Galaxy 3. So, thanks, guys, for getting James Gunn more work.
Yeah, but they brought James Gunn back.
Yeah, they did.
Count.
Yeah, conveniently they did. But at the time, so do you guys think? Oh, Midnight's Edge. If you DM me, dude, I'll get you in here. This question's for Anna, Yellow Flash, and Az. Do you guys think is there a retaliation? Do you guys remember that? I think it was Cernovich that was really leading that. Here's all these tweets. I'm going to put an infographic together.
Yeah, the argument is also James Gunn is talented. James Gunn got brought back because James Gunn made some of the best Marvel movies. Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2. Gina Carano is not getting brought back. She wasn't even good in the role in the first place. She was one of the weaker parts of The Mandalorian.
All this stuff. Do you think that there will be a strike back? Or do you think that people have just been beaten into acceptance?
I think Disney have caused themselves a big problem with this firing, and the big problem they've caused themselves is everyone is digging up absolutely everything that Pedro Pascal's been doing.
Yep. Yeah,
and
he's
Pedro
the one,
Pascal,
right?
And Pedro Pascal has been posting direct Nazi comparative imagery to the United States. Ironically for him, bringing up the kids in the cages, it wasn't the Trump administration that made the cages.
Yeah.
It was the
and
Obama
it wasn't even America either.
And the picture wasn't even in America.
Yeah, the picture wasn't, but I still said at the time the symbolism was there.
Right.
It was him trying to comment on the immigration of America. But yeah, so it was his own ideology that actually brought those cages in. But he made a direct comparison, whereas there was a nuance. There was very much a nuance and a context with what Gina Carano said. They've recently hired, of course, that Ariel woman, and her comments that she had with white folks.
She's a real fucking bitch.
Yeah, you just have to
she's
change
one
the
of the
word
worst.
white to brown, black, gay, trans, and she would have been out the door in a second, in a heartbeat. So Disney, unfortunately for them, fortunately for us, are shining a huge torch on the absolute hypocrisy that's going on within the company. A company which purposely, by the looks of it, ignored 2 black males' birthdays in January.
Not just any 2 black males.
Yep.
James Earl fucking Jones.
Jones is 90th, and Carl Weathers, who's obviously in the hit show The Mandalorian at the moment, massive guy as well. But they did.
I think that more has to do with Disney doesn't give a shit about like older actors from the old intellectual properties they own. But who knows? I find it funny too that they characterize Disney as so woke when like the new Star Wars movies aren't even fucking woke. They pay lip service to it, but then like Finn, who is ostensibly, it was like, oh, there's like one of the main characters in the new Star Wars trilogy is gonna be a person of color. Isn't that so progressive? And then by the 3rd in the trilogy, he's completely fucking sidelined and no one gives a shit about Finn. Like, the Disney movies aren't that woke. They pay lip service to it in a corporate way. But, as it turns out, they just don't want people affiliated with them that make them look like shit. I don't know.
Recognize Rose Tico's and Admiral Gender Studies birthday.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
So that looked
Admiral
like
Gender Studies, is that the purple hair lady that they're so triggered over?
a purposeful slight on that behalf as well.
It's
Their
always on
behavior, of
purpose.
course,
It's always
It
on
has
purpose.
to be on purpose, because if you could,
All right, let's skip ahead to see where they get. Again, we're probably almost done with this bit just because it's just them bitching for 5 hours, but I find it pretty funny.
Speech and just for being an American, pretty much. So those of us that can like highlight, you know, the positives about her or anybody like her speaking out, I think that's what we can do to kind of thwart the leftist mob, I guess.
Well, I don't know if everyone here has seen it, but I mean, she went on Drunk 3PO's channel and did 3 interviews with him. And in, you know, one of those interviews, she talks about how everything they've said about her, you know, she's not transphobic, she's not anti-mask, and how she's actually a huge...
She literally posted an anti-mask meme. She's trying to save face at this point.
Germaphobe. And how she, you know, went over to her mom's house and cleaned it basically with a toothbrush, and how she just honestly believes people should be able to have conversations and not have to worry about, you know, getting...
I just want to have a conversation about my ridiculous right-wing conspiracy theories that endanger the lives of those around me. Can't we just have a conversation, guys?
Call a Yahtzee.
Always fucking disingenuous.
We don't know anything about this Ranger show. Maybe it wasn't her spinoff. Because I kept hearing rumors that they were talking about a spinoff for Gina, but because of the pushback from people,
maybe she knew 3 months ago.
That's
maybe
what I'm saying.
That's what I think.
Yeah,
I think that the guy who signified the whole thing, or that was what the guy was signaling with the erasing of her in that poster.
Oh.
This has been something a long time coming, and I've had people asking me certain questions and saying like weird things that just I'm starting to see a bigger picture now. And I think Doomcock's right. I think this is very comparable to the James Gunn situation.
Again, no, it's not. James Gunn has a skill set and talents that made them want to bring him back.
Only, I don't think she was ever officially even really let go. I just think they just, at one point, kind of had that conversation that, yeah, you know, we don't have any plans for the character right now. Things are a little...
Vadim covered it in a supercut. Brilliant. Vadim, always out here with the good supercuts. 2 minutes. Let's breeze through this, and then we'll move on to the next thing.
I think I'm as pissed off as everybody else is. I mean, of the hypocrisy.
How are you feeling today?
You know, I was pretty pissed, and then when I woke up this morning, I was just kind of sad, and then I got pissed again.
Yeah, there he is.
Yeah, those are the people that have the
One sec, I gotta respond to a message
according
from
to them.
Doc.
We've got too many.
Okay.
Peens in here. Let's bring in a Vagine. Lauren Chen here.
Really?
Hey, Lauren.
Jeremy?
When I see someone get called a Nazi on social media, I'm like, oh, they're probably a reasonable person.
I think Gina.
Oh, yeah,
I think Gina's a strong woman.
I honestly think there's a good chance she may be watching tonight, but
Gina Carano just liked a tweet on Twitter, by the way.
But I mean, she could even be a classical liberal. Like a lot of the
typical classical liberal, hating masks, making fun of trans people. You know how it is. Classical liberal means fucking nothing at this point. It just means you're a right-winger and embarrassed.
the stances she's kind of taking, like making fun of pronouns.
She's making it more apparent how much they're trying to eliminate freedom of speech. If you're a Trump supporter, you're a terrorist.
Like,
remember when the government broke into the Quartering's house and destroyed his computers and banned him from being on the internet? Oh, that didn't happen? I guess your freedom of speech isn't being infringed upon then.
I think she's fucked. Now, I think she could make money. Look, Lifetime. I know people roll their eyes, but I mean, guys like Sorbo and they fucking make money making these like Hallmark movies. And then Sarah Silverman, by the way, dumb as a box of rock.
They don't understand. You know,
I think Sarah Silverman probably knows where to pee, though, Jeremy. She's got one up on you there.
no comprehension.
Yeah, they're pieces of shit.
And then I voted for Obama because I wanted to prove I wasn't racist. Fuck Disney and all globalists. Aaron Weiss says Gina did not compare shite between Republicans and us. I agree. Everyone take their pants off, and it's time. It's time. But also, lick the bottom of my ball sack. You should watch Doomcock.
I'm sick of cancel culture.
What was the max views? We were definitely over 10,000 for a while.
Oh my god. Good job, Vadim. Good job. So that's the live stream.
On potty here, but we'll
fucking
think
pathetic, to be real with you. It's real pathetic. And I look forward to future cancellations, folks, because I want more of these live streams. Who can we cancel next? Let's just do one for fun. Just as a treat. Who can we cancel? Just for funsies. Who's kind of a piece of shit? Name someone, chat. Jeremy. Bruce Willis. There we go. Bruce Willis is canceled. No, Shatner. Shatner's canceled. Shatner's an idiot. There we go. We said it, therefore it's true. That's, I think, how these people think how this works. All right, that's this video. Moving on. Bits messages and stuff. I want feud. Thank you for following. This is an awesome one. Thanks for following. MikeMax321 says, I can't wait for the day that the Republican, mostly racist white one says they're being segregated, they're living in the new Jim Crow, and they're being witch hunted, and all the bad experiences that non-whites went through just to be viewed like the victims themselves. I mean, that happens all the time. Maybe not in so many words, but they do that all the time. Flag Shapiro, thank you for subscribing with Prime. Massive Robertson with 200 bits says, it's unfortunate that the anti-SJW content from the way back caused people to shut down altogether at the idea of social justice, social consequences. I fell prey to that too at one time, but at least I figured it out, Jeremy. Yeah. Bardlock Moses with 50 bits says, 5 hours of streaming, did he leave the basement to pee? Bardlock Moses with 1,000 bits says, Star Wars sucks. It often does. Logarth with 20 bits says, this is Dagobah erasure. Archangel with 400 bits says, Star Trek is much better. Hard agree. I'm a way bigger Star Trek fan than Star Wars. If someone said, you can either get rid, or you have to get rid of either Star Wars or Star Trek, I'd get rid of Star Wars in a second. It wouldn't even be a second thought. Bardlock Moses says, Warhammer 40k is better if you realize it's satire. Profane Priestess with 20 bits says, I think George Lucas is a much better businessman than he is a writer or world builder. I'd agree. Socialist Drop Bear, thank you for following. Illumilin Vitig, thank you for following. So, Gina Carano, who's been fired by Disney for being a chud. We looked at that earlier. If you want to look it up, you can just Google it. I'm not going to go over the same tweets 50 times in one stream. Has been hired by Ben Shapiro in the Daily Wire because the Daily Wire is making terrible movies now. You might know them from such films as Run, Hide, Fight, a movie that's basically Die Hard that takes place during a school shooting. So let's see the announcement video for them hiring Gina for some project. I haven't watched this yet, so we could enjoy it together.
A huge announcement. So here is the announcement, and we want you to join us in moving this way. So here's the deal. Disney decided that they were going to drop the actress Gina Carano They decided they're going to drop her from The Mandalorian because she's conservative. It is that simple.
Not because she's conservative. Chris Pratt is also a conservative, and he's still a headliner on one of their most profitable franchises, Guardians of the Galaxy. They dropped Gina because she was spouting anti-masker bullshit, some weird transphobic-ish stuff, and compared herself to a Jewish person during the Holocaust because people don't like the aforementioned chuddy bullshit.
It's not because she did anything that is truly terribly offensive to anybody. It's not because she made a comparison to Nazi Germany, because let's be frank about this, people on the left make comparisons to Hitler and Nazi Germany all the damn time.
Yeah, but we're talking about fascists when we talk about that, and we're also not comparing ourselves to victims of the Holocaust. Conservatives really, really hate context.
It is perfectly clear that they were looking for an excuse to can her because she is conservative. In fact, The Hollywood Reporter said yesterday that they were...
And now you hired her because she's conservative. It's funny how that works, huh? Politics inform business and vice versa. Weird.
We're looking to can her for months because she is conservative. According to The Hollywood Reporter, on Wednesday, the hashtag Fire Gina Carano was trending following an Instagram post from the outspoken conservative actor and former mixed martial artist that was met with severe backlash. The post has since been deleted.
Was she an MMA fighter? That makes so much sense. That explains why she can't act.
Screenshots were widely shared by users on social media who called for her firing from the hit Disney Plus Star Wars show. According to a source with knowledge of Lucasfilm's thinking, they told The Hollywood Reporter they have been looking for a reason to fire her for 2 months. Today was the final straw. Why? Well, because after the election, she tweeted that voter fraud should be combated with voter ID, which is a mainstream conservative position, and because she had tweeted that people are essentially wearing masks over their eyes because they don't want to see the truth, which, again, fairly...
Let's take a look at the context of that one again. Breaking news, Democratic government leaders now recommend we all wear blindfolds along with masks so we can't see what's going on. Again, the implication both implies thinking that there's some sort of election conspiracy, which is a debunked bullshit right-wing conspiracy which helped foment insurrection against the government, and secondly, is a pretty implicitly anti-masker position. Like, making fun of masks in that way, you don't typically do that and use that specific meme if you're not someone who thinks masks are bullshit. On top of that, of course, we had the gender beep boop thing. We had the comparison to the Holocaust thing. You get it. She's a public relations disaster constantly happening. Why would you want her associated with your company?
Fairly mainstream conservative position. Well, the other day she put up an Instagram post, the main point of which was that liberals needed to see that if they treated conservatives as an other, that has a dangerous ending. Now, as I said on the show, not a big fan of Holocaust.
You having shitty opinions and you dehumanizing others for their intrinsic racial characteristics, you not caring about systematic racism, you not caring about, like, the health of the people around you because of COVID going on and not wanting to do mask mandates and stuff like that, is not the same thing as being in a part of a racial or religious minority group. You just have shitty opinions. You're just a shitty person.
Holocaust analogies generally. But the general point she was making here was certainly not anti-Semitic in any way. Certainly not anti-Semitic in any way. In fact, she was saying, to avoid the evils of the future, you have to stop acting evil in the present. That was the main point. Right? Don't act like people who are going to cancel your neighbors because you don't know where that's going to end. So Disney Plus canceled her. Disney decided to cancel her. Now again, it has nothing to do with the quote-unquote inappropriate...
They decided to fire her? Ben, aren't you supposed to be an advocate of the free market? You want businesses to be able to decide whatever they want. At-will employment, right? Right to work states? This would fall in line with that.
...of the Holocaust analogy. The star of The Mandalorian, Pedro Pascal, tweeted out in 2018, comparing America's treatment of migrant children to the Holocaust. He did so using a picture that was not of migrant children at the American border. It was a picture of Palestinian children from 2010 at some sort of water and food bank. And he said, hashtag, this is America. And then he said, Germany 1944, it's a picture of Jewish children in the Holocaust. America 2018, the picture isn't even from America, and it wasn't in 2018.
Sure, but he's talking about the children in cages thing. He's comparing a real event that actually has a connection to the Holocaust. whereas Gina was comparing herself being victimized to victims of the Holocaust. Do you not understand? Like, the children in cages thing is a well-documented issue under the Trump administration and even the Obama administration. Now Biden's come in and said he's starting a commission to find those kids' families and stuff and clean up all that system, and that's great. But, like, this is a real thing, and this is a valid comparison, even if the image used because it is a meme is incorrect. The thing that it's representing isn't untrue. The thing Gina was saying was completely untrue. That's the issue. Again, conservatives hate context.
Nothing. Why? Well, because Pedro Pascal has the correct woke point of view. It's that simple. So,
why are people who are correct always told that they are correct when we spout conspiracy nonsense told that we are incorrect and should shut up? What is this obsession with facts and being accurate? Why doesn't anyone care about my feelings?
According to Hollywood Reporter, Lucasfilm, Disney, they've been looking to dump her for months because she's outspokenly conservative. They found an excuse and they dumped her.
As it turns out, that's bad business, because I don't know if you've seen voting totals or statistics. More of the consumer base, and statistically, actually, the consumer base with more disposable income are more left-leaning. That'll happen. Welcome to the free market, Ben.
Well, here's the thing. We here at the Daily Wire do not stand for this kind of... We do not stand for this. And so, yesterday, in the immediate aftermath of the decision by Disney and Lucasfilm to dump Gina, I called Gina, and we talked. And we decided that Daily Wire's next film will be starring and produced by Gina Carano.
Oh, that's going to be bad. That's going to be so much worse than the last and first Daily Wire film, Run, Hide, Fight, because that at least was like, sure, it had like a conservative right-wing bullshit message and stuff. But the fact that she's going to star and produce tells me it's probably going to be a self-indulgent vanity project, and it's going to be a beautiful disaster, and I can't wait.
We could not be more excited to work with Gina. Gina just sent us a quote. Here is what she said. The Daily Wire is helping to make one of my dreams to develop and produce my own film come true. I cried out and my prayer was answered. I'm sending out a direct message of hope to everyone living in fear of cancellation by the totalitarian mob. I've only just begun using my voice, which is now more free than ever before. I hope it inspires others to do the same. They can't cancel us if we don't let them. And that's exactly right. They cannot cancel us if we band together. They cannot cancel us if we don't let them.
Okay, then hire her. That's fine. You're allowed to do that, Ben. It's going to be a terrible movie and it's not going to make money, but that's fine. You're allowed to do that.
Here's the deal. The establishment monolith is the Death Star. And we're the folks with the single fighter X-Wing. Right, the single-seater X-Wing. That's us.
Ben, you guys are the Empire. You guys are the guys in the whatever. I think y'all get the y'all get the metaphor.
They're not vulnerable to major attack from the outside, but they are vulnerable to their own cancel culture, which allows us to build X-Wings to take them on. And we need your help. We need
Hearing Ben talk. This allows us to build X-Wings so we can take on the establishment. We need to find Saw Gerrera to find where the secret plans to the Death Star are so I can take down Disney in my X-Wing, okay? Me and my sister Abby, she's gonna get a B-Wing, and we are gonna bomb the shit out of Disney, okay? Metaphorically speaking, imagine that we take our fleet of X-Wing pilots, crack team, Wedge, Antilles, and I are going to find our way into the Disney headquarters, and we are personally going to tell Bob Iger to suck our dicks.
We need your help. This stuff's expensive. We need your help because we want to produce this film with Gina. Also, Bonfire legend and our friend Dallas Sonier is going to be co-producing the film. We're excited about that. He worked with us on Run, Hide, Fight, which is excellent. We need your help. We need your membership.
I've been working on voice pitch for my voice lessons. I gotta get in contact with Ben and figure out how he gets his voice that high. He's so good at it.
Okay, and so we have, for today and for the next couple of days, a subscription code for you. Subscription code GINA, G-I-N-A, subscription code GINA. You get 25% off your Daily Wire annual subscription. Go check it out right now and join us because What we are doing here is not just providing you an entertainment alternative. That's not the mere goal. Okay, we don't just want to provide you an entertainment alternative. We want to provide a safe haven for...
Ben, does thedailywire.com host WandaVision? If not, I'm not interested.
...conservatives to say what they feel. For all Americans to say what they feel. And not have to live in fear of the cancel culture coming for them. Because as Gina says right there...
Beware the cancel culture, because if you get fired from Disney, you will immediately become a producer on your own movie. No American should have to suffer under the tutelage and employment of one eye, Ben Shapiro. Hypothetically, let's just say that you were fired by Disney, and you want to come and work for me. If you give me some feet pics, it's entirely possible that you might be a producer on your own film. Please, help me. I need money to buy larger and larger hats. I don't know, man.
They can't cancel you if you don't let them. But we all have to band together here. We have to be part of the same team, and we have to put our money where our mouth. We here at Daily Wire, we're putting our money where our mouths are. And we need your help. We want your membership. We want you to join us. We want you to join Gina. I could not be more excited to work with Gina Carano, who certainly could beat me up 87 times over. I could not be...
Ooh, he's into that. Did you see the little smirk on his face? Gina, hypothetically, if you were to produce your own film, would you please beat me up a little? Just a little bit with your feet. Were you a kickboxer? Please, Gina, could you put on this AOC mask that I have purchased from Spirit Halloween? Hypothetically, if I bought a silicone mask from Spirit Halloween, in October when they are around, commerce is beautiful. I would like you to put on this AOC mask and stomp on me with your feet. Thank you.
More excited to bring her on board and work with her here at the Daily Wire. We can't wait to keep you updated on the film and what it's going to be, and we're working with her to develop the film. She is integrally involved in the process.
I'm so excited to see what kind of self-indulgent garbage this movie's going to be. It's going to be so bad.
We wouldn't have had this opportunity were it not for the cancel culture that is the left. We would not have had this
Great, so you should love it, right? Cool.
Opportunity were it not for the authoritarian left mob controlling authoritarian left...
The free market. You mean the free market, Ben? The thing you advocate for constantly?
Companies that seek to cancel out dissent and destroy it. And again, this should not be a right-left point. This is an authoritarian left versus everybody else point. Jonathan Chait over at New York Magazine.
The authoritarian left over at Disney, one of the world's largest corporations and the largest private media entertainment group in the history of planet Earth. Radical leftists.
A man with whom I disagree strenuously. He said this is no different from McCarthyism. That is exactly correct. It is no different from McCarthyism. And we are not going to be canceled. We are not going to allow Gina's cancellation. We're not going to allow your cancellation. We stand with you. And we're asking you to stand with us. We're asking for you to join, become a member. You get all sorts of benefits. You get to hang out with us. You're going to get to hang out with Gina, too. She's going to be doing all accesses with you. You're going to get to do all of that stuff when you become a member. Again, promo code Gina, 25% off. And when you become a member, we are building the alternative. We are doing it in real time because these folks cannot be allowed to control the debate. They cannot be allowed to control the Overton window. They cannot be allowed to control what people can and cannot say within the realm of mainstream ideology. They cannot be allowed to do this.
Society can. Society does all the time. Again, it's called socialization. If a huge part of society, the majority of society, decides that certain political opinions are shitty, you can certainly espouse them. You live in a country with the First Amendment. The government cannot stop you from espousing these opinions. But no one else has to listen to you. No one has to platform you. Be an adult. There are consequences for your actions.
This is the same Hollywood that tolerated Harvey Weinstein for decades. This is the same Disney that's tolerating Joss Whedon right now, and there are open allegations of sexual harassment against Joss Whedon.
Yeah, Joss Whedon probably should be blacklisted. I agree. Thanks, Ben.
But when it comes to Gina Carano, she could not be allowed to work on The Mandalorian, this very highly successful show. They canceled a spinoff for her that they'd been planning in November because it turns out that she was an outspoken Republican. Gina's not standing for it, and good for her. Good for her. Gina's doing something heroic by stepping outside the Hollywood system and doing something with us. And we are so glad and so excited to be helping her pursue that vision and pursue that dream. And we're just asking for your help. I keep appealing for that, but it takes all of us to stand together here because these things are expensive. Disney spends billions of dollars making its entertainment content. If we want to compete with them, we have to build the X-Wing. And that comes from...
This X-Wing is going to be built out of shoddy camera work, a first draft of a script, and a completely ego-driven project.
People like Gina stepping out and taking the hit. It comes from folks over at Daily Wire stepping up and trying to back her, and it comes really from you, because we are just essentially a vessel for you. So once more, it's a great deal. You get all sorts of great stuff. You have all sorts of great stuff coming. I have brand new content on my own personally coming to you that I can't wait to show you. Really great stuff. Candace Owens is coming next month. You get all of our all access stuff. You get the second hour of the show. You get the tumblers, the whole deal. Use promo code Gina right now and you get 25% off. But mostly, we are so excited to be going up against this monolith. This is the first time that somebody has been able to have the option to stand up against the monolith and still have a career. We are making that possible because you're making that possible. Because you're the folks who are watching the content. Because you're the folks who are eager to see us step into an arena of competition with folks who really hate your point of view, who really despise what it is that you stand for and your values. So instead of giving them your money, why not instead help us out in fighting the sort of values?
Instead of giving Disney your money, maybe give me your money. I'll make WandaVision. You can paint my face whatever color you want, and then AOC can come and build a little reality where we can have an imaginary family. Spoilers for WandaVision? I don't know.
System that they're promulgating, which is not just a liberal value system. Far from it. It's not classically liberal in any way. It's not even open-minded. It is an authoritarian left crammed down mindset. So again, you can sense I'm really pumped up about this because I am supremely pumped up about it. I'm really excited. It is a massive opportunity for us. It's a massive opportunity for conservatives to fight back. It's a massive opportunity for the entire conservative movement to say, enough. You control all the institutions. You know what? We're building our own. We're building our own and we're supporting our own. Good for Gina. Gina stood up. She took the hit. And now let's stand by her. Let's stand by her.
Again, you're not giving her a job based on merit, though, right? You're giving her a job entirely based on political affiliation, which is just the opposite end of what Disney's doing. Do you see the irony, Ben? You're participating in the same exact thing as Disney, except, again, pro this conspiracy bullshit.
So, again, I'm extremely, extremely excited about all of this. So that is the big announcement for today. Head on over to dailywire.com. Use the promo code Gina for 25% off your annual membership over at Daily Wire. I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Ben Shapiro Show.
I didn't. Ooh, Ben, when he's doing the end card promos, gets down here. Welcome to the Ben Shapiro Show. When normally he's up here. Hypothetically, what if during the end card I talked like this? Ren Hide Fight. This is the first and most recent movie put out by Daily Wire Entertainment. Critical reception and release. I'm curious if there's any financial data from this. I'm guessing not, because I think it mostly released on like streaming services and stuff. Run, Hide, Fight received mostly negative reviews from critics as a score of 23% on Rotten Tomatoes based on 13 reviews with an average of 4.40 out of 10. The film also has a score of 13 out of 100 on Metacritic based on 6 critics indicating overwhelming dislike. The film was described as fundamentally tasteless by Jonathan Romney of Screen International. He did, though, praise the film, its strong performance from its young stars. Guy Lodge of Variety compared the film to a cross between Elephant and The Hunger Games and criticized the film for being merely pedestrian at the levels of direction, craft, and performance, and a grab for attention by peddling an ambiguous line on gun control and eye-for-eye morality. I'm curious if I can find any Rent, Hide, Fight budget. Can we find budget? At minimum. That would be good. I'm guessing it's all private and we're not going to know, but I would really love to see how much money Run, Hide, Fight either made or lost. I don't think we're going to know, which is a shame. But we will go ahead and, of course, take a look at whenever the Gina Carano ego project happens. We'll take a look at that, and I'm sure it'll be bad. Maybe we'll even do a watch party if it winds up on Amazon Prime or something. Either way, we'll see what Ben Shapiro does next. Let's do some bits messages. Socialist Drop Bear, thanks for following. Oh, I already read that one. Logarth says, Trek has been woker longer and with a more rabid fan base and better pseudoscience. Bardlock Moses, the 50-bit, says Chris Pratt keeps his mouth shut because he knows better, right? That's what I'm saying. Logarth, the 20-bits, says, I think Ben just wants a Findum buff mommy. Estries TV, thank you for following. 2Man642, thank you for the 30-bits, says, breaking news. Far-right mouthpiece Ben Shapiro arrested outside of Disney HQ yelling, I'm Luke Skywalker. Doodleburb with 20 bits says, I like what you did with your hair, by the way. It's nice. Well, thank Baha. She did it. So, thank you, Baha. Bardlock Moses with 50 bits says, she went from working with Gordon Ramsay to working at Burger King. Profane Priestess with 20 bits says, the British government has ordered hospitals to not resuscitate people with mental disabilities who die from COVID. Oh, God. Is that even legal? Logarth with 20 bits says, I got $5 that says it never gets made. I think it'll get made. I think it'll get made. I just think it'll be terrible. Fury at Do Not Resuscitate notice given to COVID patients with learning disabilities. How in the hell is that possibly legal? That's disgusting. I don't know. I had some other videos on the Gina Carano thing picked out, but I think we get it. Do we really need to know what fucking Tim Pool thinks about this? I think we all know what Tim Pool thinks about this situation. I don't think we need to hear from him on it. Rageaholic did a brief video, but I don't really care. I think I'm done for the day. We went for 3 hours. That'll do. So let's see, who can I raid? Also, Findom is financial dominatrix. She takes your money and controls you financially. Oh, I'm not gonna kink shame anyone, but that sounds like a bad idea. Whatever. You know, we were talking with Doc earlier, so let's go ahead and raid Doc. That makes sense. I got a new keyboard, and it's very nice. Would you guys like to see the keyboard? I love this keyboard. Oh, yeah. It's pretty good. I'm basic, so I like that RGB shit. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming to the stream. It was a good time. Chat's valid, and I will see you all either tomorrow or Monday. So, have a wonderful evening. You're all valid. Have a nice night. Bye.